session at 7:30. And should start by anybody got admissions or corrections to the minutes?
I thought they looked good.
I had one question. On the 97 Mill Road, did I hear it correctly?
Oh, that was right.
Okay, yeah, I made a
Yeah,
bunch of
we
edits,
initially
so I
talked
went
about
around
50, but settled on 25 based
Yeah,
on
okay.
the existing conditions of the site. And I looked specifically for the 24,000 square feet of impervious on
Yeah,
the notes about, for the stormwater. But the minutes looked good to me.
I had one question. I wasn't at the meeting, but the second paragraph on the second page, 44 Bruce Street. I wasn't sure of this last sentence that says, he said they have gone from trying to get what they understood were the requirements Commission wanted them to meet and to meeting the full. I didn't understand what that
I
was
didn't
saying.
really either.
Oh.
I think
Pull it back up.
it's always hard to hear when you listen to the tape, but I think he said initially they did what they thought they needed to do,
Yeah.
but it turned out it wasn't nearly enough, and so they
So
went
what
back
we
and made
wanted
it
them to
full.
meet versus the full handbook.
No, the full handbook
Okay.
versus what they thought was just sort of, kind of do the best they can. Because the regulations say, meet the full handbook.
Right, so they've gone from trying to
In
get what
person,
they
okay.
understood.
If you saw the trailer loads of fill that are going up Bruce Street, that is going there, it's unbelievable.
Really?
Oh, yeah,
Really?
once they start in the morning, it's just, I don't know where they're finding stuff, but they're finding it, and it's just trailer loads. And
Huh. And where are they putting it?
next to the foundation of the new house, it's a mammoth house, huge house. But anyway,
24,000
They
square
don't have
feet
their
of
order of
impervious.
conditions yet. so-
No, that's, yeah,
I'm saying, wait, did I really miss
but
something?
maybe they're outside.
They might be working together, two
Yeah,
houses.
they're probably working.
so, is there anybody would like to make a motion to accept minutes? As
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes for Monday, July 23rd, as amended.
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
And before we get into it, administrative discussion, I just want to make a comment. I guess it's down here, the Eagle Scout project up on Harvard Road. The kiosk is up and there's shingles on the roof.
Oh,
But that's as far as it, there's still got to do the hot face work and stuff on it, I think. But it is up. Okay, Cloverdale parking lot design. I see we have that on the agenda.
Yes, last time I was here, I was directed to go out to Green International and get a proposal for the design work, which they did, and then I went around with it with Chris Stoddard, because there was stuff that, since the town's gonna be doing the work, that doesn't need to be done. So Green cut back the proposal for that a little bit. And I believe that was in front of you, so I think it was 11 for everything. It says 11,530.
And that's about the same of Harvard Road. then.
Yeah, and what I would recommend is that task 5, which is the final plans, and task 6, which is stormwater memorandum permitting, not necessarily be approved to proceed right now, because it might change, but they can certainly get started on the concept design and the access permit piece of it. And this would be from the Oak Hill account, presumably. And he sent you this as a better idea.
Do we need to vote to support this?
I would say so, yes.
Anybody got any more questions about it?
No, I do agree with Amy though regarding not giving authorization for task 5 and 6. It doesn't make sense at this point. But otherwise,
So I would sign them up for the entire 11,000, but just not giving those proceed for task 5 and 6, yeah.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
Okay. Make a motion to approve the plan for the design of the Cloverdale parking lot without authorizing plan for 5 and 6. Is that certain sections?
It would be tasks 5 and 6
Tasks
of
5 and
the
6.
August 7th letter.
August 7th letter. But they can go ahead and start with the access permit. And what was the other
Survey.
task you wanted to start?
Field survey and conditions,
Field survey.
conceptual design, public hearings and meetings, which they may or may not add in, but at least they're there, and the DOT access permit are the first 4 tasks.
First 4 tasks. Okay, and they can start with the first 4 tasks and this will approve the entire 11,000 allotment, even though we're not authorizing 5 and 6.
Do I hear a second?
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. 63 Great Road at Cloverdale, what's that all about?
Both, I think it was the zoning board of appeals, myself got a joint letter complaining about, or pointing out some issues at 63 Great Road next to Cloverdale. The zoning piece had to do with setbacks for sheds, and that's a separate issue being taken care of. But the other one is that it's been mowed as if lawn.
Oh.
So frankly, you know, I felt if I go out there and look at it, I would start to walk out there and say, this is not part of Cloverdale, this is part of a private property. So I'm not sure if you saw my site walk stuff. Here's one copy of it, it shows some of the pictures on there in the back, I think. There's another copy. So Jim and I,
See, this is mowing. So is this,
I haven't seen that pictures.
Oh, it was,
by the-
what's the mowing is showing, is that private property or is that Cloverdale? In the picture.
the line,
Yeah, where's the line?
From
Because that would be
Great
helpful to
Road.
see. Oh, there's a stake. Okay.
yeah, the
Here's
line
one.
is kinda along here.
Oh, the stake was-
So this is all Cloverdale, over on that, so yeah, so there's a stake, I'm kinda standing at the
Oh,
tree,
so
which is sort
This
of,
is Cloverdale?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so I'm standing here looking back
Mhm.
to a stake, and I'm standing at that same place looking toward the stake, so all, this is Cloverdale on this side.
I see. And so the property owner on the other side mowed this themselves?
That's us.
Oh. Oh.
We've mowed it for 42 years.
Oh.
Yeah, so you might go the whole thing that you had the agreement with.
Yeah, Karen,
Yeah.
fill you in on everything.
Let me address that.
You wanna, do we need to go up?
I read
Yeah.
the site,
You might as well come up and say
Yeah.
it if you'd like to.
Thanks. Okay, the no-cut easement was presented to the planning board on the Phase 4 map of the Appledore development. Joe DiCarlo, the owner,
what year was that?
oh.
1998, I
Late
think.
90s,
Okay.
yeah.
Appledore, what's,
Appledore.
When they,
Oh,
so when they
That's what it
developed
was
it,
originally
that's, I'm
called.
trying to get
Yep,
this.
this
So
is
when
this-
they developed
Before
it, this is
became
when
Grist
this.
Mill
Right.
or Snow Village. or-
okay.
Okay, yeah, it was the extension of the old Snow Village, okay.
Okay.
So Joe DiCarlo, the owner of the property, told the board and us that he was adding in the no-cut zone to give us protection. He stated that we could plant trees on it or do whatever we wanted. It was termed a no-cut zone so that if we planted trees, the town wouldn't be able to take them down in the future. We elected to just maintain it by mowing, and, which enabled us to prevent the spread of invasives from the two neighboring properties onto our property. We've never used it for anything, we've never built a building on it. All we've done is mow it and maintained it in that way. And although our neighbors contend that we do have buildings on the property, that is far from the case. So I would like the record, make sure that the record shows that Amy came out and confirmed that the buildings were as we stated they were, and we weren't in violation of that. And so our question is, if the commission is not gonna honor the agreement, the original agreement made before the planning board, we would like to know why.
Say again what the agreement was. It was to do what?
He put a 25-foot buffer around our property, just to give us some protection,
Protection from,
whatever might happen there.
Oh.
Originally, it was going to be playing fields on the Cloverdale property. And
I
then,
see.
Oh, so
and
you
then
wouldn't
when the
have it right
swap
up
was
against
made
your
to
property line?
conservation,
Right.
that went away. But the easement still stands, as you can see on the plan.
and so the mowed area includes your property and the 25-foot easement?
Yes.
Okay, so where does the easement end on that photo then that you were?
I have been mowing past the 25-foot easement because that field is, as Karen said before, we've been mowing it for 40 years since we moved in there. And it was always an open field, so I just always mowed it. Now, there's a 25-foot defined line there. I mean, there's no actual,
Can you show where
But-
the,
yeah, roughly,
There's a
All
stake,
right,
you
Abe?
can see the stake
Yeah,
in, I
there's a-
think, the next photo.
is that the stake of the end of the 25 buffer?
Circle.
25-foot buffer?
no, that's our property.
But that's your
So our
property.
property comes like out to the street like that.
Okay, so it's another
So then
25
there's a
feet.
25 feet out this way,
Right, Of-
is the buffer.
Okay.
And then there's another 15 or 20 feet to the edge of the wood line that I've also been mowing.
I see.
We'd like to maintain that 25-foot buffer just to keep the invasives from encroaching, as we've been doing for years.
Well, who owns that 25-foot buffer?
You do.
Except
It's
there's an
just
easement. The 25-foot buffer is the easement. I feel like what's in question is the area beyond the 25-foot buffer.
Well, it's kind of,
Because if there's
usually
an easement
a
is-
no-cut easement means that there's trees on it that aren't to be cut. This
Right.
was sort of not that.
Well,
If you
Yeah.
wanted to
it
plant
wasn't
trees,
that-
then they wouldn't be cut, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's
we-
why he termed it
Yeah.
as a no-cut zone.
We have no problem stopping at the 25-foot, if
Yeah.
that's okay with you, and just not mowing the rest of that. But I really would like to just maintain that, just to keep the invasives out, because it's full of invasives behind us, and all along that wood line in Cloverdale that goes
Now,
down to the meadow.
Does this abut the Cloverdale meadow that we keep talking about? Or is this,
Oh, no,
there's
it's
space
far
in
away
the-
from it.
It butts
Is
the
the
wood,
space-
it's
It
a
abuts the
woodland.
woodland
Some
that's
of the pines
between the
next to it.
parking lot and our
Oh,
and our
that's
property.
where we pulled up and parked the
Right.
night we were there.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That's-
there's the woodland there after the parking lot, and then there's this open space between our property and the woods.
I
And
mean,
that-
would you be amenable to mowing it, like once a year instead of, kind of like a meadow instead of a yard?
Well, we'll have to do whatever you say. It's really up to you, what you want.
That is all well and good, and what you get, like canary grass or something growing in it, and it's 4 feet tall, if you only mow it once a year. Or
I
if
mean,
you
you'd have
got,
to have a mower that could handle.
well,
mowing it. That's-
crabgrass, which is growing like crazy right now in my lawns. I mean, it's depends on the year, but where it's been so wet, it's almost like it's easier just to let him keep it. It's not like he's building on it.
Right. I'm just thinking of benefit to, pollinators and things like that. It's more beneficial for pollinators to let the, things flower and go to seed than it is to mow it like a lawn.
I guess it
Um.
depends whether he's got a tractor and a rotary mower. That's what it comes down to. It's,
I mean, and they are also the steward of Cloverdale, and so mowing the rest of Cloverdale.
It's part of our job.
Yeah.
where it's been, my feeling is where it's been going on all this time, I don't think it's particularly harmful at this point, but I guess that's the rest of the board has to decide.
As far as I can tell from the old aerial photographs, trees have not come down. It was always kind of a meadow, and it's
Right.
been mowed. And I don't know if I was out there right after you mowed. It is short.
Right.
Right now.
Looks short, yeah.
It looks like a continuation of lawn.
Yeah.
So maybe even just where those posts are is putting the usual conservation land.
I'd like to see it. It honestly would help me to see it, cause I could
Yeah,
say
yeah.
like, you know, so for me, the easement isn't in question. The easement's been in place for a long time. And then I also recognize, as the stewards of Cloverdale, this would be an area you're maintaining anyways. But perhaps it makes sense for us to see it rather than throw some, you know, an arbitrary, like, okay, only mow this section once a year.
Right.
I'd like to see what invasives might
Well,
be
we're
in the area.
retired. So
So,
you can
yeah.
drop by anytime.
No, I just feel like in order to come up with a solution that makes sense and that's not arbitrary, I mean, let's just go look at it.
Sure.
And figure it out. But I have no issue whatsoever with your easement. I don't, for me personally, I have no intent to rescind an easement that you guys have had with the town for decades. That wouldn't make sense to me, but I think,
Well, it's not rescinding an easement, it's how we want to keep the easement, since it's our easement, you know, and it's actually technically part of the recreation land or the Cloverdale property. I mean, I also don't mind it being mowed. I'm just wondering if it's beneficial, if it's more beneficial if it's not mowed so
But you-
close like lawn.
But you've got the swamp out there, you've got all that. It's not like it's the only open space
Right.
there is.
right.
Well, that's true.
That's why I'm thinking-
That's true too.
Yeah,
That's why I'm thinking looking at it might make the most sense.
Yeah,
That's my.
that's fine, I think if that's
it's an easy look.
Yeah.
what the board members
No,
want
it
to
is.
do,
I
I
mean-
think would be a good, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, you're invited too, Jim.
Hmm?
You're invited.
I mean, you don't even have to have a formal sidewalk, if you just let me know when you wanna look at it,
Yeah.
I'll show you what's there.
Just
So
drop
if you
it.
wanna come individually or whatever, it doesn't
Okay.
matter.
Yeah, I feel like in the context of Cloverdale, in the context of,
Sure.
of the easement.
Mhm.
And I had
That's what
also
makes
said
sense to
that, I don't wanna, the boardwalk itself is not on the agenda, so I don't wanna get into the boardwalk, but we did order the lumber, and the lumber was gonna be delivered to this spot, so I just said, certainly keep mowing it now, because you
Right.
need to keep it down for the lumber.
Yeah, the lumber will be
Having the lumber
delivered
within sight
Friday.
of the house is a good thing,
Oh, yeah.
so it's not
versus-
off in the woods somewhere where people can just start.
Right.
Well, yeah, and lumber prices have gone up too, so theft
Oh,
of
it's
lumber
been an
is
issue, yeah.
more of an issue now than
Yeah.
it would have been. So yeah, I mean, it's part of Cloverdale. That makes
And
Plus,
regarding,
there's
sense,
access
but-
off of my driveway to that field,
Right,
so,
right.
and it is safer there, to,
Okay.
you know,
regarding
for
the
vandalism.
delivery, as Amy said, we were allowed to mow it in preparation for the delivery, and we've purchased 12 pallets to put the lumber on and the piping on, which we are not seeking reimbursement for because we'll just keep the pallets afterwards for our firewood.
Just so we can sort the lumber into different piles, because it'll all come on the truck in one big bundle.
Right.
Well, you want it off the ground too, especially all the
Yeah,
rain
we
we're
may
getting.
have to store it for the winter.
Right, right.
Depends on whether
Which
it
was-
dries out or not.
Yeah, which was my
Right,
next
okay.
point, which is a good deal of the sawing is gonna be done in one of our sheds, especially the planking. But any lumber that we have to hold over the winter, we will bind it up. We will, put straps around it and bind it and tarp it so that hopefully we can stave off some warping over the winter.
Yeah.
So, that's all I got.
Makes sense.
Okay, so do you wanna set up a site walk now while we're here, or?
Yeah,
Sure.
sure.
It's a good rainy week.
Don't say that.
By the
It
end of the
is.
week.
It's
End of the
the
week.
forecast is
You
for
can come
rain
see my
for the-
split tomatoes.
Right.
for the near
You're
future.
not trying to put hay or grass silage up.
What?
Did you,
You're not
Amy, did
trying to
you
put hay or
address
grass
the-
silage up.
No.
the shed?
That's
So we-
a
That's
zoning issue, so it's not.
So it's not, even though it's encroaching on your property?
Yeah, they have a shed that.
We have a shed that's right on the line, it's not within 10 feet. I talked to the
It sounds like a zoning.
building department
Yeah.
this morning, and we're gonna remove it. So
Okay.
they've given us 60 days to get it out of there.
So it's really not a big deal because it's not really worth anything anymore,
Okay.
It was the original goat house,
Okay. So,
I'm not sure if anybody in the audience has anything to say on the issue.
yes,
So, I don't know if you want to use the wondering if you all were able to.
Could you
actually-
just identify yourself? for-
Okay, Maureen Adama, number 5 on Farm Road. Want to make two things clear, and this is really more so there wouldn't be an extra expense or whatnot to the town. If this parcel 5A is considered part of Cloverdale, you all might be in violation of the actual hearing and whatnot for the boardwalk, because you would be missing certain abutters from the 100 zone if it's not part of that. Research that I've done has determined that 6A, 7, and the big lot, which is 0, is what has always been classified as Cloverdale from back to 2014. In addition to that, I would like the letter that we did write, having concerns about the fact that this property has been mowed and been used for personal purposes for quite a while. We actually can demonstrate through actual photographs from the time that we moved in that that was a wooded full area, and that there have been trees that have been cut down.
It was never a wooded area,
And I
Maureen.
believe that what Amy's looking at in 1995 is from when the cuts were starting to happen for the divisions of the lots coming and the houses starting to be built. So I do think some of the documentation that we sent in to Amy might be of value to look at. I do appreciate that site visit would be taken care of. And, you know, we stumbled upon this only because we started getting interested in the boardwalk. It wasn't something that we went looking for. We've been there for 15 years. We always had made the assumption that this property was theirs due to the fact that there have been accessory buildings and whatnot on it. So I do appreciate that there would be a site walk. I don't quite understand, the easement actually comes onto our property also, and that comes right into the woods, so I don't understand why, you know, they would be cut there and then not on the other part of it. And minutes back to from when Apple Mule was first being proposed back in the mid-90s, Myron has been able to provide, as Myron Toohill, who is the planning director, sets of minutes and plans and such, and there is no evidence of there ever being any kind of agreement between the O'Neills and anybody owner of that property that they would protect it. And I do think it might be worth the commission's time to actually even go through their property file. There's actually evidence that, you know, they actually had a pool that was on the other side, on top of the other neighbors, that did need to be removed. So they've had quite a few issues, I think, through the years, maybe not complying to the bylaws and such that many of us here in Littleton are very proud that are usually enforced very strongly and fairly. So appreciate that there'll be a site walk. I would like the letter to be read that we sent to both Amy and to Michelle Cobley, who's handling the zoning. Did hear from Shelley, Michelle's.
She was Board of Health.
She's the zoning enforcer in building. Shelley did contact me and said that there had been a letter sent out to the O'Neills and that they would have to be removing the structure. So I think it's very much worth keeping the investigation going and kind of looking at those other documents and maybe even speaking with planning and whatnot, just to see really what has occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Some of what Mrs. Aduna has said is incorrect. First of all, that 25 no-cut easement does not border her property.
Do you get
And
the
we have
20
never
foot?
had buildings on that property.
There's a 20-foot easement that goes across, is that what
That's a
you're talking
different
about?
easement.
That's
Yeah,
a
that's a
drainage
different
easement.
That's a
Right.
drainage easement from our
Is
house,
that what
but it has
you're talking
nothing to do with this 25-foot no-cut easement.
Right, right.
We actually, what ended up happening was when we went to go purchase our house, we ended up getting almost 2 lots because it was determined that another house could not be put on the other side because it was too wet. So that I physically just came to work. I work till 7 on Mondays. I don't have any of my paperwork or anything with me, but if you were to do, you know, like I said, the investigation and even pull the plot plans it would be determined that does go on to our property. And again, folks, I'm not even gonna kid you. If you're gonna start calling 5A part of Cloverdale, you're probably going to have to start all over again on the boardwalk, because you're gonna have to post again and do the abutters notices for the 100-foot. There's more evidence that 5A was never part of the Cloverdale scenic view, anything at all. It was 6 and 7, all the way back from 2014, when I first came to this commission with talk about what was going to be happening. And incidentally, in that particular meeting back in 2014, I was specifically told that there would be nothing to be done right behind my property, and that's exactly where 5A is.
Yeah, 5A is part of Cloverdale, but it wasn't part of the project area, so
Yeah,
there's no
it's the
abutters.
wooded area.
So the abutters are from the project
No, it's
area.
the mode area.
And then are you 110, are you 110?
It has wood-
I'm just trying
it
to
has
orient
wood-
myself,
110.
thank you,
I'm
okay.
110.
It does have woods though too.
Yes.
It's the buffer between the O'Neills and the Cloverdale. It's woods right there.
Yes, and that's 6 and
Okay.
7,
6A and 7A?
yeah. The
And
wood is
5A.
6 and 7, and 5 is mode.
All of 5 is mode, 5A?
I don't know where the
Oh,
line
I
is
know what
between
you're talking
5A and 6A on the ground.
Oh, we'll go and
Well, it's-
look to try
yeah,
to figure it out. It's, I mean, we
Copy the
can
map, honey?
try to figure it out all we can here, but
I gave them all.
Oh.
I think we need to.
It's 150 feet for 5A, 112 feet
Yeah.
for 6A. And then 7A is, that is Cloverdale?
Wooded. 6A and 7A are wooded.
No,
The
7A is,
brothers.
7A is where Cloverdale, the mode area is, because it's right where the wetland was. The
Yeah, I see
wetland
the
goes in
wetland.
7A.
Yeah.
5A, 6A, and 7A were originally owned by Park and Rec.
Yeah, I see
Right, and they
future
transferred
recreation.
it.
And then they were transferred to ConsCom.
Yeah, we traded.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
trade.
Right.
Okay.
But they've always been part of the whole contiguous property.
So the trade included 5A, it was like just all over, and the part that we
Since-
mow
Since
the,
that trade was made, I don't know what the date is, that was all
Within the last
considered
5 years.
conservation land.
right.
It's within the last 5 years.
I just don't know where the mowed area is versus the wooded area, where it
Yeah,
lies. on
that's kind of where I'm at too.
The
We
wooded
just need
area
to
must
see it to be able to.
be what we drove up to as a parking lot.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sorry, what was your name again?
My name is Maureen, and it's Adama.
Okay, so, because what Amy was saying is that the abutter notices is from the project area, not the project line, rather than the lot line.
Right, and that's why I'm stating that, I can't state for certain, you would have to probably have someone from a legal standpoint take it, but, everything that has been established as Cloverdale starts 6 and 7, that 5 seem to be vacant. And I'm also of the opinion, again, I'm not speaking on it, but just from the research I was able to do, was that once that changed out of the plan recreation, it did become a different type of protected land here, coming under conservation. So I think the O'Neills are very aware of that when it actually changed type of property, let's use that phrase. And the mowing, it should have stopped, although I believe from my photographs from before we put our fence up and when you can see through the backyards, many trees. You all have a big stump sitting in the middle of the tree right now. Amy's report even states that the one tree you say you took down was because there was still a trunk there.
That tree came down in the ice storm in March,
But why would there be just one tree being grown in the middle? It doesn't make any sense. Nonetheless, I think just the research needs to be done. I would encourage also speaking with the building department and the zoning officer, looking into the property files, speaking with Maren Hill, who has minutes going all the way back from when, you know, the proposals of Apple Dior. And like I said, I don't think there's any evidence of ever having any special permission to use that as their own personal property. It was first planned for recreation, and then it became conservation. So I think there's a violation there. And the 15 years I've lived there, I always believed it was their property, just because it would be used the same way I would use my lawn.
It was not used for any purpose, Maureen. We've never put a building on it. We've never done anything on it but mow it.
Okay.
And I'm tired of listening to your lies constantly.
I'm not making any lies. This something came up out of research. And Karen, go ahead and look in the property file, for goodness sakes. It said, you know, y'all had a pool on someone else's property.
Yeah, and we took it down. We were also in negotiation to buy that piece of property from that owner. And we decided not to do it.
Okay, listen, I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you as a commission. I would rather them just be able to do their investigation. The letters never would have been written to the town if we hadn't done some research. And we didn't write it as a complaint, we did write it as some concerns and looking for some answers. And that's the way I approach things. And I just think fair is fair.
Okay. Step
I
one, the
guess
sidewalk.
maybe, yeah,
Sidewalk would be,
but I'd like to know where the bounds are.
Yep, step one's the sidewalk. I mean, we gotta start with.
Well, Green can
knowing-
set, as part of their stuff they're doing, they can at least set the bounds for 6A.
Yeah,
And I'll ask them if they can just throw in 5A at the same time.
yeah, that'd be good.
So,
So what's a good time?
but I was wondering, when the town took the property, we exchanged it, how much research was done at the time when we exchanged properties? Whether the town council's got any affirmative information?
Yeah, whether if it changed use here, whether they had any then change in description of the easement or,
I don't
Or an
think,
existing
I
border
don't think,
five
I
A
don't
or
think it could
survey or
change
Okay.
the terminology in the easement. But I would think, I was just wondering what town council's view was.
yeah. Yeah, that would be good too,
Yeah,
get
yes.
council's view of it.
But I guess the sidewalk's probably in order. Some people got time to go out there. So has anybody got a date or anything in mind that they would have time to venture out there?
I mean, days are easier for me this week, but Thursday evening, Tuesday evening, and Thursday evening, I do like a 5.
I could do Tuesday at 5, but
It's tomorrow.
Yeah.
We might get thunderstormed on, but
Wednesday
I'm just
seems,
I've got the
Maybe
weather.
Thursday would be better.
Wednesday
I can't do
seems like
Thursday.
it's gonna be a halfway decent day if you're
Wednesday.
interested.
You don't want to bring your boots? Come on.
I mean, I
Friday?
could also, if there's
Friday?
a time that works for others, I
Friday,
could go
it's
during
fine.
the day.
You could do Friday?
I could do Friday.
Okay, I could do Friday. Maybe if you needed to do Thursday, you could do
Yeah,
Thursday
maybe
and
go out
then,
with Amy or something.
Yeah, okay.
and then you and I could do
Just see it.
Friday?
Sure. Yeah.
Is that all right with you guys?
'Cause I definitely,
Yeah.
I know I can't do Friday.
So what time Friday you guys wanna do it?
I could do 4:30.
Yeah, I can make that work. 4:30 would be fine. Should be fine.
Okay, 4:30.
And when do you wanna do it?
Me, I could go during the day tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday. I just can't do
Tomorrow,
Friday.
something was happening tomorrow. I've got a-
Wednesday? Do you wanna? We'll email tomorrow about Wednesday. When would work on Wednesday? So I've been pretty open. So we can-
Boy, something was happening, I can't remember what now. Yeah, how about Wednesday then?
Okay.
You wanna set a time now or figure it out later?
Either is fine.
You wanna do it like around noon, something like that?
Yeah, do.
Sure.
Sorry.
That's for Thursday or Friday?
Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday.
That's why I'm writing it down.
Yeah, that's why I write it down.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
If that's settled for the time being. Land Stewardship Committee, what do you got for that?
Do we have a public meeting starting
Yeah.
15 minutes ago?
Yeah.
And they can't make it, so we can,
Oh, we
Push
can,
that.
okay.
so I was still gonna have the discussion and see if you're amenable, but
Yeah, I looked at
We
the
don't have somebody
materials,
waiting
I
for
didn't
it.
have a problem.
yeah.
Okay.
But yes, the land stewardship. Oh, that's a whole separate file.
Oh, so, okay,
We're still
Durkee's
on
not
board for
coming
that
in.
one, right, Amy?
Yes.
So
So-
we'll just stay here.
Yeah. Just quickly, just so you know, we have well, I won't mention that one. I've been looking at some of the volunteering, both at what LCT already has on their website, and Keith sent me to Lexington, which almost looks like you stole from Lexington.
No, we didn't.
I was planning on stealing from Lexington. And town council said that you can set up a land stewardship committee. They can't make any specific decisions, and they would still need to report to the ConsCom, but there's no reason there can't be the Littleton Land Stewardship Committee. So if that sounds good to you, and if Jim's still willing to be the, whatever you want to call, the Director of Land Stewardship in Littleton, I can start getting the pages basically using what LCT already has for a form for volunteers who want to sign up. It looks better on the
So
webpage.
this is in addition to what we have at LCT?
It would just be a mirror image,
Like a
so
mirror,
that
yeah.
the town
The town has
has.
done it.
And I did get the volunteer consent and release form approved by all the powers that be. And Nancy's gonna put that on so it's fillable on the webpage, and they do the auto sign type stuff on it.
Good.
And then there'll probably be some sort of dealing directly from those guys and or Lexington, a blurb on what a land steward is and does. So people
I think
So we
that-
have that all formalized.
That's great.
So it's kind of, so we have a name if we need to list the names, or who we have to contact. Somebody.
Exactly, so what I'm saying is if people, like, we already have the land stewards. Some of which are for the town, some are for LCT, some are both. So they're gonna need to just fill these things out, sign the waivers, and then if anybody new wants to come in, they can ask me, and I'm just gonna send them.
Thanks.
But at least now they'll be redoing a direct line of communication that there have been concerns about, and with the insurance and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
So-
You do know I already have a permanent office on my kitchen table now.
Oh, no, I didn't.
No,
Well,
I have.
I'm not surprised.
Seems reasonable. We have an idea of what's going on and who's doing what.
Now, if you're willing, what I was, land steward, the 8 o'clock can't come in. Someone, she just left.
There's two people now.
Okay, yeah.
Wait, did she say they couldn't come in? Or they?
8 o'clock, she just said something about
So
that.
someone from, I can never remember which one's 51 and 53, is here to talk about the restoration that they need to do for the Hartwell, this is Glenberger's, the whole, and this particular project is the one that had the beach volleyball, the pool's
Oh,
right at
yeah.
the line, but extending into the conservation restriction was
Not the
right.
pool, the pool equipment.
Yeah, the pool's right, yeah.
Pool equipment.
The pool's good, the volleyball court and the swing set and stuff. So I don't know if you wanted to run through what your,
We're
I
all
think we're done with you.
Okay.
Tree hunt?
We'll let somebody else sit on the hot
Do you
seat.
need something for tree hunt?
No, that's not us.
Okay.
They're just gonna.
I was just gonna mention it
Okay, good.
too, so. So did you wanna just kind of?
You can go over.
Okay, all right, so, we've been kind of working on what needs to be done and getting this going. I mean, there's no way it's gonna be done quickly. So, our first phase is really to get rid of the sand, and the wood chips that are out there. And the sand is gonna be a process,
Mm.
because there's a lot of sand out there, that costs a fortune to remove it.
Mm.
So you've got to have a lot of people coming in and taking sand.
Yeah, and the weather is not helping either, because with all the rain, it just makes it a little harder for people to get access to it, because we're trying to eliminate as much of the damage on the existing part of our property for the grass, so we're just waiting for this dry weather, you know, just to dry out a little bit of our lawn, so people can come down with a truck and fill it. Because right now they're just taking buckets, and buckets are not gonna really make a difference. So, but we do have someone that is really interested, that has an equestrian and wants the sand for the arena.
Oh.
So they just need the time and the weather to collaborate, so they can come with a bobcat and take loads of it. So it's a process, but it's happening. We can see that that would be good.
So you're not just moving the court somewhere else,
The what?
you're not moving the volleyball court to somewhere else on your property, you're just actually moving it?
We're just getting rid of the
Oh.
sand.
Okay.
The trampoline has been moved and the play set. It's a matter of timing, because Creative Things have a policy that they have to relocate the play set, otherwise we lose the
Oh, the
life
warranty.
warranty. So we're just pending on their schedule to open, and they're saying it's probably late fall, because during summer they do all installations, they don't do relocations. And then we also have to prep an area for the play set to come, so we're probably gonna take some of the sand that is left over and just push it over to an area that is not restricted, and then put the play set on top of it.
Okay.
And then once you remove the sand, you were gonna supplement it with some soil.
So you have recommended that, you know, we fill the place,
Yeah.
fill the space with soil.
And then I think this is probably gonna really take a sidewalk, or trying to talk about how to vegetatively restore the area. And I was assuming at least 4 to 5 clumps of shrubs type thing, and then seed the rest of it. But I think it might take a sidewalk to look at it, get an
It'd be
idea
good
of
to look at it.
the scale and stuff like that. So I don't know if you wanted to try to do that later in the fall, maybe, when you've had a better chance of getting the sand out of there, or if you wanted to do it sooner rather than later. Her time frame right now, she's assuming 9 to 12 months.
Okay.
So
To get
I
the
don't
sand
think.
out?
To get I think we did it a couple of phases. I think getting the sand out, and then getting the soil, and I don't know what else is there, and then planting. I will prefer to be doing planting in next spring, because I think that for the rest of this summer.
Yeah, so
That makes
that
sense.
was
I-
really, try to get as much done this fall as you can, especially the sand, which is kind of a big deal.
Maybe stabilize it
Well,
for the winter though,
how
like
deep
with
is the sand?
straw or something like that.
It's pretty deep. The sand,
Yeah.
how deep is it?
I have 12.
Yeah, it's a lot of sand.
It's inches, so it's not.
And of course, it's not valuable enough for people to want to come in and bring in their own equipment unless you need some sand.
It's valuable.
I've tried, I've been
Yeah.
pushing it with contractors, you need sand, and I'm like, no.
It is valuable to a sense, but
Right.
people just find it's cheap, like builders and contractors, they
Yeah.
find it cheaper just to pay to have a truckload gone to their job sites than paying someone to come and take it and have the
Another piece of
labor to
equipment.
fill
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
truck to remove it to a different location, so that time, it's not valid. Their time is more valuable
Yeah.
than come and dig in there, you know, or bring their equipment. But we're good that we find someone that want it, and we'll take care of it. It's a matter of time and the weather collaborating to,
Yeah, the
so we can
weather's
get a
been
dry lawn,
challenging
so
for sure.
his truck is not gonna damage my existing lawn. It has nothing to do with the restricted area, we have
Right.
Yeah.
established lawn.
Yeah.
And it has a little hill, so if the grass is wet, it will dig into it, so we just wanna make sure that we also don't extend the expenses to this project. But I think I'm not worried about stabilizing the area, because there's a lot of grass before it gets to that point.
And it's pretty flat.
It's pretty flat, and it drains well to the other end of the conservation, not to this particular area of conservation. And then if we can get the topsoil, and then in the spring, we'll probably be looking. The other thing that I also was told that once we get the sand and the wood chips, things will grow back. So the hay fern, the hay scented fern and other ground coverings will grow back. So I would like to also have give some time to see if they will grow back and how much covering would I actually need to restore at that point. And that probably will happen in the spring as well.
So maybe, I don't know how you feel about it, it'd be worth maybe a site walk this fall, see how things look, that way
Yeah,
we
that makes sense.
tweak the planting plan,
Mm.
get Natural Heritage on board, so it'll be kind of ready to go in the spring, if that,
Yeah,
Sure.
because, Natural Heritage is never gonna be fast and.
Right.
right.
Yeah, I'd like to see it before the winter, so we could get it
Right.
stable,
Yeah.
stabilized if it needs to be. Yeah.
All right, so I'll
I think that
try to
makes
remember
sense.
to sometime in September. we talk
That, and I
about-
can appreciate the creative playthings. They're very specific. I mean,
Yeah.
they just are. And, you
Yeah.
know, I volunteered for the Castle in the Trees rebuild.
Oh,
and
right.
I never had any clue how specific playground regulations are. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
so, I mean, that's a really huge expense.
It
So
is,
we don't wanna
it's
make
an
it.
expensive play set,
Yep.
and we don't wanna lose.
But they're
the
rugged, they're
warranty.
solid, they're rugged,
They're
and
solid, they
I
will
don't think
last a long
there's.
time, but if I touch it, they will sail to bed, you
Yeah.
move to
Yeah.
lose the warranty.
Yep.
And we still have to pay for them to relocate, it's almost $500 for them to come and relocate. So that's becoming a very expensive project for restoration, and I don't have the money laying around, so I will appreciate the time, because I need to plan for that as well. I'm in contact with Middlesex, the flyer,
Yeah,
what is the?
Middlesex Conservation District,
Oh.
who's having their
Yeah, their plant sale.
plant sale.
Yep.
So I talked to them and
Yeah,
they said,
yeah.
you know, they don't think that I have much to benefit from the fall. Probably from whatever they're gonna
Right.
have available in the spring would
Yeah.
be more like.
Yeah, so
what I
it's a
need.
source.
So,
And when's Arbor Day? Because I saw some sale,
April.
people doing trees,
Is
they're
the
probably little.
town still giving away trees?
Oh, yeah, they are.
Green
Yeah.
Light
Meadows?
and Water's giving away trees
yeah,
still, shade
I
trees.
got it too already, maples,
I think they still have some though. So.
they wouldn't do any good now.
Yeah.
They still have to remove the sand and
Yeah,
get the
it's
soil
there in
and
spring.
things like
Yeah.
But the Middlesex and the Worcester, so she got me in contact with the Worcester too. But they are seedlings, they're like small.
Yeah.
You're gonna protect them from the deer.
Yeah, that's
buds
true.
and all of that. So, when we get to that point, we'll cross that bridge, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Sounds like you've got a plan.
So keep working on the sand and maybe we'll come out in September sometime and,
Yeah, let me know.
all right, perfect.
I'm wondering what the original topsoil was.
I'm sure it's Phil from the house spot though too.
It's been a while since I've been there. It's I think it was a lot of white pine in there, so, it wasn't
Yeah.
great stuff.
Okay.
There was a point that I asked you what was the soil type, because one of the natural heritage pages for native plants,
Yeah,
they asked for the specific soil type, and you didn't have like a.
yeah.
Just do sandy loam.
Yeah.
Well,
The average,
Clean
average
soil.
soil for
River ledge.
That's an interesting.
I guess
We can probably ask. So Natural Heritage didn't have an answer on the.
Why don't you go down and see NRCS?
Soil?
They've probably got soil mappings of the Hartwell Farm. And
What?
NRCS,
I'll look into it.
Yeah, we can look it up on. The.
It's not very specific information though.
No,
So,
no, it's more regions, but it probably is like a sandy loam.
Web
But-
soil survey.
yeah.
but they
But yeah, it's gonna
Hartwell
be kind of
hauled a
generic
lot of
for
gravel out of there.
creating a
Made his
planning
parking
plan.
lot across the street. Before you probably hit town, that was a ski area.
Oh, I've
In
heard of
that-
that.
in
Yeah,
that fenced-in
I definitely wasn't
area,
around there.
There was a lot
Yeah.
of gravel hauled in there that made that
Okay.
parking lot.
Yeah.
And I can remember going down through the path, because I used that cornfield way
Yeah.
out across the bridge. And I can remember seeing off to the side where there had been stuff dug out.
Yeah.
So I'm
Well,
assuming.
so I guess back to the objective of what Natural Heritage wants, it's really to support, the habitat, like the plants, the flora and fauna. So And do we have to, I guess maybe we can look into how specific that has to get and,
Which is why I think
Figure that
that
out.
if
I
we
mean-
can come up with a better
yeah,
idea of what you guys would like to see for a planning plan in the fall,
yeah.
natural
Okay.
heritage can take their crack at it, and then
Okay,
it can be resolved by.
okay. So it's not something she needs to like hire an engineer to figure out like what soil to put. They can be prescriptive based on.
We were talking
I'm not intending
white
to
pine,
hire
white
Yeah,
birch.
no, I'm just.
Okay.
When we
What's
bought the
already out
land.
there.
No, I know,
Yeah,
I know
when
that.
we bought
That's
the land
that
that
was
we
my
were digging for
question.
the foundation, it was just rock and ledge, was
Yeah,
nothing
it's-
like
it's
a good.
There, yeah.
Pretty
there
bony
is ledge
stuff.
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nothing
Okay.
grows there, that's why
I-
we just,
I mean, I guess my thought is if it meets the objective of what we need the final to accomplish,
Yeah.
we don't need to make it any more
Yeah.
difficult than that. Okay. I missed the beginning too, so I apologize. I didn't mean to freak you out
No,
about.
do not need to be any more difficult than whatever the
Okay.
situation is already is.
Yes, we better
Okay.
move along.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good, I will be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Glad you could make it.
How many of these meetings are canceled right now down the list?
Just the 8 o'clock. Well, the phase 2 and 4 of Turkey Farm.
Okay.
So we'd be moving on to the Bruce
Bruce
Street.
Street.
Which is what, 8:15?
8:15. Yeah, so we can open it.
Roll
We're
right in.
late.
What happened to 49 Manawatu?
I don't know what I
They're
guess.
they're not actually here, so
Oh.
I think there's no reason we can't just bump it, pick it up later,
Oh, okay.
so these guys don't have to wait.
All right.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey.
Last time Bruce was in, he basically explained where we were going with the drainage and asked for your opinions on what you would like to see. And we basically came in with everything that you requested. We did a full stormwater management based on all 9 standards. We wrote up a report. It's a nice big thick report that Amy has. We've got all the drainage, all the storms are meeting what they're supposed to. We didn't do the mass balance, we did the whole entire site, so there's some chambers on his dad's lot, and then there's some grass swales with check dams, and some drip edges for the roofs, and a retention basin. So with all that, and we filed for the waiver request to remove that debris pile that's over on the mound there.
Yep.
So, the plans haven't changed since Bruce was in. We just finalized all the drainage and stuff based on what we had on the plans. Put it into the models and HydroCAD models and made it all work and tweaked the basins a little bit. That's what we got.
So
So
the
my-
basins
yeah.
are tweaked on your plans?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if he went through last time he was in, but
Yeah, so they haven't
Yeah.
really changed from,
Yeah, we went through the
Correct,
grassy
that's
swale
why
and
I'm trying
the
not
check
to-
dam,
yeah.
and this guy, like the isolated wetland over here, and how
it's,
where the divide was, and where your drainage was. So we went through.
Yeah.
So we did go through that, and so this is the same as we went through last
there's
week,
like
or like
inverts
a couple
and a
tweaks?
couple of tweaks, some of the grading
Okay.
right in here based on when we pushed into the model, but it's the same concept, just the pipes of inverts have changed and styles and stuff like that.
and I've got all the final updated materials.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And I made them take the old ones away.
Yeah.
Half an acre of impervious, so there's a lot of water to deal with.
Well, you guys could just look the other way on this little 1,500 square foot patch. I'll put the barn right there and I'll wipe out all this. We'll leave all this natural.
That's okay.
Yeah, yeah. After all these
Yeah,
meetings.
start
I was
over.
gonna go, I just
You wanna go back to the
thought I'd
beginning?
throw it out there one more time.
So I believe we have everything, Amy forwarded me the draft, I read that, I didn't have any issues or any questions or anything, it seemed pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so the, as I understand, the only new condition other than the regular special is just doing the removal of
The
the
waiver.
debris pile during the dry
Drive.
condition.
And
Yeah.
you've submitted the waiver?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so
And-
we talked it out at the last meeting, and they said they were going
Okay.
to submit it for this one.
Okay,
we didn't
so,
talk about
so you submitted it for this meeting, and so, what were the justifications for it?
Removing the debris pile, just getting that stuff out of the buffer zone. the public interest.
So that's the public
Yeah,
interest.
it's public interest because
It's leaching, it's rusting out and
Yeah,
leaching.
it's-
What is it exactly in the debris pile?
There's microwaves, there's kitchen.
Oh,
Slash
yeah, it's-
and waste,
Pickup
there's
truck bed,
microwaves.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just yard waste.
I took
it's-
pictures for the last meeting, just lifted it up with the grass cutter, and it was just loaded with stuff. I can imagine there's gonna be a couple loads coming out of there.
Okay. All right, well, so we, I'll make a motion to, anybody else have any questions before? Make a motion to issue an order of conditions for.
How about to close and
Close
issue
on the
Oh,
hearing
to
first.
close the hearing and order and issue, order and.
Issue of
issue
conditions.
Do
an
something.
order-
Do something
issue
official.
an
Oh,
order
man.
of Conditions for 44 Bruce Street, R2216, Mass DEP 204864.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Does someone gonna wanna pick that up when it's ready, or?
Yeah, I can come pick it up.
All right, I'll let you
Yeah,
know.
just let me know, send me an email.
I'm gonna try to have it ready tomorrow, but if not Wednesday,
That's all
I'll
right.
let you know.
I don't think they can put the hay bills and stuff in tomorrow, so there'll be a little bit of time.
And there's a 10-day appeal period, which you can work at your risk.
Okay.
I have to, do you own the property next to the 40B that's going in Acton?
I did own the property.
Oh,
I
okay,
built
yeah.
the-
I think I saw your name on there.
So, yeah, so I built Jamie's Way, which is the 3 lots right in front of it.
Okay, yeah,
That was a nightmare.
yeah.
The town wants the high density growth there. They stalled me 10 months on those 3 single-family residences because they wanted 17 small houses there.
Oh, really? Wow.
Now they're putting like 40 or 50 behind me. There's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
On how big?
On small, I mean, I had 3 acres over there and I just wanted, no, I had 4 acres and I just wanted to put 3 houses. And they gave it to me eventually, but they're putting like 30
Low-income
units.
housing.
3, 4
Three
stories.
stories, it's all
3 stories.
building or
Low
pavement.
income?
30 feet off of off of the houses I built. It's gonna be a 3-story wall. So they're not happy. They paid 800 grand for the houses and this,
Yeah.
the 3-story building gonna be right behind them, 30 feet off their property line.
Pretty close.
Like, what were you over in Acton for? Did you do Acton too?
I live in Acton, I'm on the Acton Conservation Commission,
Oh, okay.
because I don't get enough of this.
Yeah, I was Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Take it easy.
Take care.
I guess we can move on to the continued public hearing, notice of intent, 10 Fort Pond for construction of driveway for a single-family home in Acton.
Good evening.
Hello?
I'm William Hall with Stamsky McNary. As you may recall, this project has been going on for quite some time, but I'll just run through it real quick to refresh your memory on it. So this is Sarah Indian Way, and Fort Pond Road is down to the south of this property. And what we're proposing to do is a driveway to access a single-family dwelling, and it would be crossing isolated land subject to flooding, an isolated wetland, and then there's potential vernal pool marked in the area as well. So there was a site walk, was it last week? For this
I thought it
property?
was a vernal pool, it just isn't certified.
It's,
Isn't it confirmed, because we confirmed there were eggs in there and everything?
well,
It's,
Dave could answer
well,
that.
still, it's shown as a potential vernal pool on the maps, but it's not certified. It's, I mean, y'all.
Is it
Agreed
only
it is.
officially a vernal pool when it's certified, or can we say it is a vernal pool?
Therein lies the road.
Okay, anyway, move on, sorry.
So it's, I wasn't at the site walk, I couldn't be available, but my understanding is that there was some discussion of potentially going one-to-one with the restoration areas. So we looked at this area here. We are filling approximately 800 and, I believe it's 880 square feet in that area. And this restoration area is about 670 square feet, so it's a little bit shy. I remember from a previous site walk, there was discussion about potentially doing something in this area because it's less wooded growth in there, it's more brushy material. If we could get something in this area, then I believe we could make that work. And then there was also talk about the limit of the vernal pool, which what we're showing was located on June 6th in this area, to the east of the driveway crossing, but I can let Dave speak more to that point.
Well, it was survey located on June 6th, but it was staked out at the end before Memorial Day. So that's,
It was actually, I believe, staked on June 6th, survey located later.
why don't you guys do what I ask you to do? Very slow survey over there. But
We went
Was that
out,
past the?
to be clear, we went out on June 6th and staked the
Staked
location
it.
of it, and then survey came out after and located those stakes.
Oh, okay.
But I was out there before Memorial Day when I asked for some location before all this rain started happening, and it potentially could, considering how much water was in it at the time, it would have just re-flooded the whole area. But as you saw last week, there's no water in there at all right now.
Right, but there's staining on trees,
Right.
you know, like 6 inches up the tree, like there's staining on the bases of the trees, and Amy was there. Amy has a 2-month period where
It was
It
cross,
it was wet beyond there, and so yeah, therein lies the rub again, to get on the same page about the resource area. So if it was staked on the 6th and surveyed after, so is that's after the window, isn't it? For vernal pool?
Well, I consider the window to be from the beginning of April till the end of May. So when I asked them to locate that, it was before the end of May.
I understand that.
And it was pretty much where it is there. So, I mean, I know, I don't like to be out there in March just because of the different things happen during March that either,
Snow melt.
well, there's either frozen or we get additional snow, or
Yep.
in some years it's great. It's a really nice early spring, you get a lot of activity. In other years, nothing happens
Yeah,
until.
no, it varies.
But, so typically I look at the beginning of April is when things really start happening. Even if there is still snow on the ground, they don't pretty much wait much further longer than that. And
So,
then the 2 months for the, whatever gets laid in there to become viable and leave the pool by the end of May.
And Amy, when did you take your pictures again that showed it
This
floating on
this
the-
year was a little late because everyone thought things were about to move, and then we had a big snowstorm.
Yeah, April 15th, we had snow.
Yeah. No, it was before that.
Oh, okay.
Because I went out there March 28th, and their spermatophores were in there. Whether or not stuff was in before or not, I don't know. Because you know, I see stuff moving by mid-March. It depends on the weather.
Yeah,
So in this year, the mid-March to mid-May timeframe is what I was looking at
yeah.
because of when things moved, which did show the standing water was across where the driveway is for 2
Right.
months in that period. So that's the issue.
So that
So-
means that meets
So-
the
so
criteria,
the-
and then you guys weren't retained in the required time frame. So it's
Yeah, they didn't
Right.
say
I see
that.
this as kind of a complicated for me to make a determination if we have evidence, but we also didn't have you guys on board in the right time frame. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to proceed.
I guess wait, so your photograph showing that it went across the road was in the middle of May
For a 2-month period.
for a 2-month period.
I
Which is
started
the
in
requirement for
mid-March,
vernal pool.
and I think I ended in mid-May, and I stopped because I couldn't keep going back all the time. Here's my last
So
one.
the requirement is like 2 months of continual water, area of 2
Yeah,
months.
exactly. For some reason, I went back May 30th, but I didn't take any pictures of stuff other than tadpoles. But yeah, May 16th, this is where the driveway is, was still flooded. And for what it's worth, this is the Littleton Water Department rainfall. April was pretty high, May was pretty low, June was about
I remember
normal, but.
being dry.
Yeah, but there was a period of real dryness there for a while.
Yeah.
too.
All right, and there's the tree standing, the water's down a little bit.
So the Wetlands Protection Act regulations define the vernal pool depression as what's gonna hold in the 2-month period, plus the 100 feet as long as it's still within a jurisdictional area. And that is the vernal pool habitat, what is protected, is not just the depression,
Right.
both equal. The Army Corps just goes by whatever spring high water is, or fall high water, depending on that.
Fall high water is, or spring high water is the.
For the Army Corps, it's,
That's their jurisdiction.
yeah.
We were looking at like the natural heritage guidance for certification of vernal pool. It says the Wetlands Protection Act 310 CMR 10 protect certified vernal pools up to 100 feet beyond the pool by preventing alterations which result in impairment of the wildlife. In order to receive protection through the WPA, however, CVP vernal pools, certified vernal pools must occur within a jurisdictional wetland resource area. If the protection extends to the vernal pool itself, so that counts as the resource area, as well as the portion of the 100-foot zone around it that's within the resource area. The WPA of vernal pool habitat does not extend non-jurisdictional upland or the buffer zone of the resource area. In summary, conservation commissions are empowered to prevent the impairment of the capacity of vernal pool habitat to function as wildlife habitat. And it says vernal pools that are not certified may also be protected by local conservation commissions or the DEP if credible scientific evidence is presented prior to the end of the appeals period for a superseding order of conditions issued by DEP. Conservation Commission or DEP on appeal can incorporate protective conditions into the order of conditions that would prevent the impairment of the wildlife habitat value of the pool and its 100-foot vernal pool habitat if the pool is not certified. So my interpretation of that is we have, in my opinion, credible scientific evidence through Amy's site walks and Amy's photographs. And so that's my opinion on it at the moment.
That it's an uncertified vernal pool.
But there's credible scientific evidence
Yeah.
that it is.
And the fact that we have to have 100 foot around the vernal pool, despite, even if the vernal pool ends at that point, you still
It
have
would be the
100
vernal
feet
pool
of
habitat.
the protected
Yep.
vernal pool habitat.
Exactly.
So,
So that encompasses the roadway that they're proposing.
yes.
Yeah, the roadway basically goes this right through here.
It's that
And
part.
this is
It's that
yeah,
part, the
yeah,
the gray area there.
right. And so the end of this area is kind of over here, Jim, and then
Yeah,
the
right.
vernal pool.
So you're going right through the middle of it, basically.
Well, through the
Oh, the habitat
through the end
area.
of it, but yes, through the habitat for sure. And
Yeah. And vernal pool maybe.
Right.
Well, well then, if that's the case, we would have to consider that it's kind of a crossing and have to
I think
comply with
you'd,
the crossing.
I mean, I don't know, my opinion is you might as well deny it at this point.
Or a bridge, a long bridge.
The bridge would
I
be
think-
very costly.
Bridge would be very
Yeah.
costly, but I think also part of the consideration is the applicant didn't retain professional services in the right time frame, and then to now come back and to try to permit it now, to me, at a minimum, we would need the applicant to come up with the credible scientific evidence that it's not at this point, except we have evidence that it is.
Well, just for the record, we're not disputing
Yep.
the evidence. In fact, we
Yep.
felt it was from the beginning.
Yep.
So, I can safely say we can't overcome.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt this was a vernal pool from the beginning myself.
Yep.
That's why we asked him to, or we tried to pressure him to get me on board to get this moving a little more quickly, and he,
Right.
for whatever reason, he didn't do that.
But, okay, now what would the alternative be to mediate this through? If
So
a
it's
large,
I think there's a house
wide
already on the
box
lot.
culvert, or,
No, this is to get down there. There's
Mhm.
nothing's been built yet.
There's
The
another
lot,
house in
there is a
Acton.
house up
There's
on-
another
Right,
house
right,
in
right.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
want to like get through. There's like another.
He wants to
Yeah, there's
basically
another house,
subdivide.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it, to me, based on the site walk, based on our scientific evidence of, 2 months of, characteristics of biota, the DEP guidance, I think would be setting a serious precedent, allowing a driveway through a vernal pool. And I don't feel comfortable with that.
Well, yeah, because it's, I mean, no matter what, I don't think it's disputed really where the edge of the vernal pool is or that it's there. And if 100 foot from that is habitat, then there's no
Right.
way to have it not be going through a vernal pool.
Right.
Um,
I think the dispute could be the 100 feet, but I think we have credible scientific evidence that this is certifiable, and based on the guidance that I'm reading, it's.
yeah. That there's
so
no
I'm not
impact.
inclined to vote to approve it.
Well, just for the record, DEP has approved these before with vernal pools that are already certified. They've granted driveways through the 100 feet of wetlands that would fall under the no disturb area under the regulations.
Okay. Well, I think also some of what Amy had, it looked like the vernal pool was extending a little farther, so at a minimum, June 6th, May 30th, June 6th once isn't like, I understand what you're saying, but if you want to dispute it, we need at the end of the season.
Yeah, we have
isn't gonna
evidence
work.
that for the entire 2-month period, it had extended right where your driveway is.
Right.
We're not gonna dispute that, but I believe what Dave is getting to is that we've done projects, and actually our firm in particular has done projects actually filling a portion of the pool itself, not just the habitat area.
What DEP? Which region?
Northeast.
Okay, well, there's no guarantee. This is not the Northeast region, so there's no guarantee.
And was that for what, a single family home?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
on which there was
Well, I
already?
gotta tell you, if you want to compare Northeast and Worcester, Northeast is much tougher, so much tougher. And they approved those crossings. Much to my surprise, but.
The guidance says we can protect a vernal pool, and that's certifiable. And again, perhaps if the applicant had made the effort to gather the data, but we have data that the vernal pool is beyond where the driveway is.
well, I see it a little differently in my own mind, is that if we deny it and we send it, they appeal it to DEP, they either override us or they send it back to us and we still have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's all options. So, but I mean, the scientific evidence and all this business, it seems so this board should at least deny it once
Mm-hmm.
and then let them go to DEP and see what they have to say about it,
Yeah,
and the powers to be.
I think so.
That's my opinion. I mean, that's up to the rest of the board members, but that's kind of how I'm reading it right this minute.
And the DEP Wildlife Habitat Protection Guidance says that a finding that impacts to vernal pool habitat will not result in an adverse effect will only occur under rare and unusual circumstances. A finding of no adverse effect must include consideration of the restoration and/or replication proposed after 2 growing seasons. However, replication and restoration of vernal pool habitat is difficult to successfully accomplish. Therefore, avoidance of impacts to vernal pool habitat is almost always necessary to meet performance standards.
Well, so if this is certified vernal pool, do we have the other, is that this line? Where's the
These
other
are the-
end
These are the flags
Okay.
that Dave had set.
for vernal pool?
Yeah.
So if this, I mean, I think we're in agreement, this is all certifiable because we have the scientific evidence. So then you have 100 feet off of this is the vernal pool habitat. And so we were.
Within the ILSF, yeah.
Right, well, and then, but we were walking out here and it's, we were talking about how it'd be a shame to knock down these nice native
Right.
trees, you'd have to drive all through there to get to it.
To mitigate, yeah.
I don't see mitigation being a strong, a benefit in this case.
Well, the reason why this is as large as it is because in your bylaw for the 3-to-1.
Yeah, we discussed that while we were
Yeah.
on site. We're like,
Yeah, if we did 1-to-1,
This is
then
a lot of
it's much
disturbance.
smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to think about, that's a nice area that
Yep.
It seemed a shame to. I mean, with the hill here too. I mean, the salamanders and the frogs are certainly moving across into that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess for me, having replication or doing extra, replication is not, not something that would that would sway me, just given the conditions on site already and the habitat that's already there.
But usually, somehow or other, you can't deny access. You can think you can, but my feeling is with what you've got,
I think the guidance is clear that we can protect this and.
So,
It's complicated by the fact that there's already a house on the lot,
Right.
so they've
They already have.
had use of the property from.
But
And I am sympathetic that it's not the house that they want. I am sympathetic to that, but
but it's a A&R subdivision, so approval not required under subdivision control law. So it's a legal building lot that he has that his only,
with no access.
well, his other choice of access would be through Acton across 150 to 200 feet of wetlands would be the crossing through here. A much larger crossing than the 50 feet that we were proposing. And then he did also speak to the neighbor to try and get a driveway easement, but that didn't go anywhere, so.
Maybe it's worth revisiting that.
Yeah. Saying that you couldn't do anything else
If
except for
it's
having.
become a little more urgent.
So what's the opinion of the board? What do you want to do? I think you're looking for an answer.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to approve the driveway through Burnable.
Well, we'd have to make a motion to deny in order of conditions.
Do you want to hear, see if Amy's got another opinion? I'm not
I
saying-
don't.
Because it's going to be dumped in your lap in Acton, right?
Well, that's
That's
okay.
That's
That's
besides
all
the
right.
point.
Yeah, that's okay. I'd like to make a motion to deny an order of conditions for 10 Fort Pond. I'm sorry, is that right? Yeah, 10 Fort Pond. For construction of a driveway for a single-family home in Acton.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Let's see what the says.
Now I have to write that up.
March 30th.
So we're today's the 13th, the next meeting is on the 27th.
Mhm.
I think it's probably worth reviewing the order of conditions kind of formally at the next meeting.
Okay.
Just to make sure we got everything laid out,
Okay.
and then you can issue it the next day.
Oh, for
Yeah, for the,
Bruce. Okay.
so I'll do up a draft.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Good
Night.
night.
Thanks.
Can we go back up to the administrative stuff?
That's the first denial since I've been on the commission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I go through old files and I see them every now and then, but, yeah. What am I doing? It's tough.
It is
Yeah.
tough.
It's really tough.
Yeah.
It's not that it won't go and be appealed and they'll get what they want, it's just that they're gonna have to go through another
Right.
layer of bureaucracy to,
Imagine if the regulations weren't there.
Well,
So
it
it's great that you're defending it.
it depends who they get a hold of in DEP.
Well, our wetlands group is pretty small at the moment, in central region.
Okay. The Calvi, yeah.
Caliva, or however they pronounce it. Yeah, so, just quickly, someone wants to, has a very old cottage, no one has lived in it in a while. Someone bought it new, or however it works over there, I have no idea. I can't remember right now, it was 2 or 3 trees right next to it, at least one's about to fall on
I
top
saw
of
the
it.
pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that birch,
so-
that picture of
so
that birch.
I said,
There
yeah,
it is.
trees, fine, go out. Rebuild, I assume at least an RDA. Even if they have,
Okay.
by whatever their bylaws are, they have to have the exact same footprint. But I said for rebuild, RDA, if they go on a deck or something, you know, let's talk about it, so might actually be getting a filing in on that too.
Okay.
Eagle Scout Project webpage.
That was my bright idea. I thought it would be nice if there was a link on the ConsCom page to the Eagle Scout projects.
Hmm.
And I talked to Alicia down in Parks and Rec, and she said she would link to the same thing, and LCT said the same thing, so slowly I may put something together. So at least there's an acknowledgement on there that people can see. I was kind of hoping the Eagle Scouts might do it, but.
Yeah, as a scout project.
I know, really, yeah, exactly, so that's a possibility.
There are definitely scout parents who are proficient in web stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure something
And
pretty
scouts
nice
do
could be
themselves,
done,
I'm
which
sure.
is kind
That
of
should be a
beyond me.
scout project, like.
Well, exactly,
something
that's
with the
exactly
website.
what I was thinking.
And they're free sites like Square, what is that, Square page?
Yeah, so,
That you can use for free, make a page.
yeah, or just be links through ours, so. Something might happen.
Hmm.
Okay. What about tree hunt?
They're gonna do the tree hunt again this year, that's just and last year didn't require any kind of land use permit, because it's just people walking. So I see no need for a land use permit.
I think there are restrictions on like not using tinsel, like
They
plastic tinsel
have
and
the
all
same,
that, but.
they have the same stuff.
Okay.
Oh, it's Christmas
Yeah.
tree
Yeah.
Okay.
decoration.
Well,
Yeah,
it's not a
so that was
Christmas
fun.
Oh,
Great.
yeah, holiday tree.
Different theme, they're all different themes.
Yeah, and it's great, it's a good,
Yeah, it gets people
a
out,
low
like
use
people.
time of year to get people out there.
I heard
so.
so many people like, oh, I never got out here before, this is really, you
Yeah,
know, so.
and LCTA suggested adding the Smith property in there, so.
How many properties do they have?
As many as people will volunteer
Volunteers,
to do a tree, yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
So if you
they're
guys
like
wanna do a tree,
half a dozen.
yeah, a bunch of regulations on it or
I
something.
think actually, I think my Cub Scout troop wants to do, not
Good.
mine, but
Right, right.
the one my son is in,
Yeah, yeah.
was talking about it, if it goes there. So.
Find one in a
It's kinda
wetland.
neat. Huh?
Find a tree in a wetland.
Oh, jeez. Everybody hike to this one. Because it was also, when did it end? Like January 6th or something? So
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Hmm.
it's nice to, you know, also like get out when it's cold out.
Hmm.
You know, it's a reason
Okay. Hot Lab conservation restriction updates 51, 52, Hot Lab, what's,
Yep, so you heard 51, that's the beach volleyball, and then 53 is the shed. And he will move the shed, he wants you to know it's gonna cost $4,000 to move the shed and remove the gravel.
to. Wow, it's buy a new shed.
And then
for
he
that.
will,
Yeah.
he
Holy
will
cow.
need to cut down trees outside the conservation restriction area to move the shed. I said,
It's not our jurisdiction.
Yes,
We
yeah.
can't.
Wait, so he
Sorry.
cut down all the trees to build a shed?
On his
When
property.
he put the
that's
shed in,
us.
he didn't actually have to cut any trees, he just like sort of snuck it
Yeah,
in,
put it-
but it is
But
across
it's
the
in a-
conservation restriction
yeah.
line. So in order to pull it out and put it where it's not in the conservation restriction, he will need to cut some trees to place it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is because
There's
someone
nothing.
didn't delineate the conservation line
Mm.
for him or anybody. It was just
Yeah.
left up to the individuals to have figured out where it was.
But usually people are conscious of their property line, I'm not sure what happened.
This line showed up on their deeds,
Yeah.
it's on there, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it's, they're getting there. He also wanted to change the marker, as did the guy that's up on the other end of the slope. But what he wants is to install a marker that is level with the ground on an aluminum plaque set in concrete. See example below. Now, I kinda had a problem with something flat on the ground,
Yeah.
it's gonna disappear.
It
Yeah.
just gets covered over.
You know how much time I spend trying to locate monitoring wells that have
Oh,
been covered
yeah.
over?
Oh, yeah.
If they don't have a big concrete pad, 2x2, you just lose the caps.
How about if they
What's
angle
the-
it, like, just angle it, so it's,
But what's
up a
the-
little bit, but.
Yeah.
But it's an area where they won't be mowing, because it's in the conservation restriction.
So it's
So,
gonna
you know,
go.
even if it's like this, you know, you start blowing your leaves into the woods, which you know they're gonna do. It doesn't seem like you're gonna be able to find it easily.
What's the reasoning for wanting it flat?
They don't wanna look at it. Which I can fully understand, it's right in their backyard.
Yeah.
But it has
But
to be
isn't it supposed
visible.
to be a concrete, or not concrete, a granite
it's-
post? Isn't that what
it's-
we're supposed
it's
to
a-
lend
it's
it
a wood
as well?
post.
Oh, wood, that's right, with
Yeah,
caps.
with a sign on it
I
attached.
thought one person we told they could put the post in and put a bush around it.
Yeah, the guy at the other end is gonna do that, although I have to
Yeah,
get
put a
out there. He
blueberry
said,
bush or something.
he said that
Yeah.
slope is growing like crazy and he may not even care about doing that anymore. But yeah, so, yeah, if they wanna hide it that way, but I think when you're walking in the woods, the line, you gotta be able to find it.
Yeah.
Cause a lot of these are
Yeah.
turns,
And they need to be obvious.
Too.
It,
yeah,
that's
the idea.
how we got into this mess in the first place, is there were no markers, no lines, and
Right.
yes, people need to read their deeds, but I
It should have
don't
been.
think I went through my deed with a fine tooth comb. I relied on my attorney for that.
Mm.
You know, I'm sympathetic to, you know, why these people are in this position in the first
Yeah.
place.
It should
I
have
really
been.
am.
Should have been the developer's obligation. to-
Right, well, it was, and he didn't meet his obligation.
Well, according to his attorney, he did. It was the builder that was supposed to.
Right.
He had it worded so it was the builder that was
Yeah.
supposed to
Mm.
delineate. But initially, if you went
Yeah.
back in the minutes, when this was all said and done from 20 years ago, or whatever
Yeah.
it is, we had said put a fence.
Mm.
That was something we had discussed.
Yeah. Well, lesson learned for next time.
Well,
I think it needs to be a post, you know, it could be a short post, but it needs to be a post.
Which is what's lying out there, waiting for the shed
Yeah.
to be installed.
Okay.
I mean, because, you know, Glenn Berger installed them all, and in these couple places, he
He
just
can't.
left he can't put it in yet.
Oh,
So he left the post out there lying down, so, and he
Yeah.
committed that he will go back and put them in,
okay.
Okay.
assuming it's not 5 years from now, probably, but.
I can't
Okay.
imagine $4,000 to move the shed.
Just to cut down all the trees, probably.
No, that's
Right?
true.
Isn't
It's
that
it's
what it
not,
said?
I mean,
20, yeah, that's true. Could be.
oh my God, they were cutting
1800.
trees at our neighbor's property and our property today, and they had that monster crane in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
The thing's absolutely amazing.
yes.
Well,
How they
that's
And
can
it was so
expensive.
graceful. Yeah, the guys are screwing up and down the trees and cutting here, and the thing would just like lift it over the house.
Yeah.
Lay it down the
That's
road.
problem. It's too easy now, that's the problem.
Well, it's expensive though, so that's not.
It is
good.
very
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah, but you'd never had a tree come down and crash your house.
That's
not true.
expensive.
That happened. On a piece of
Yeah, I
property.
mean, unless he can demonstrate some hardship or, you know, a better, a reason to not have the post. There's
Yeah.
any reason to,
And they,
A bunch of wildflowers around it.
yeah.
Something.
But I am sympathetic to them having to, you know, spend money to undo. It's not fun either.
So, going back a little bit to the Cloverdale thing, you'll be getting a hold of the town attorney and see what
Yes.
kind of,
See if that easement still exists. I mean, an easement's an easement. I don't know if the easement necessarily makes much difference in one sense.
We closed that discussion though, right?
Yeah, that's true, we shouldn't.
It's-
Thank you.
Yep, okay, cool.
and I see we've got continued discussion of the bylaw regulation review. Anybody want to tackle a little of that tonight?
I'm interested in seeing what the end of the, so I participated, actually I sent you guys an email, the low impact development
Tomorrow, yeah.
effort. I think most of it didn't really touch our bylaws. It was mostly, like zoning and stuff
Did you
like
see
that.
they
but-
recommended a tree ordinance?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
well,
saw
we
it.
have, yeah, I mean, and we have some like shade, we have some shade tree, and scenic roadway, but parts that I was interested in was, making it, I don't know if you can like have a reason to not clear cut properties or have like
Absolutely.
assigning some sort of value to not clear cutting.
Incentives
well,
somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
exactly. Sorry,
It's
I'm
the
like
tree
not
prevention
feeling well.
policy.
Incentive is the word I was looking for.
The state's working on that too.
Yeah, and I kind of felt like through the process too, are there ways we can like work with developers to come up with and get them on board with, rather than having to just, be like this push and pull. And of course there's going to be some push and pull because there are things you can and can't do, but I'm like beyond what has already been recommended, and I've heard a bunch of developers are interested and are probably going tomorrow, but I'm interested in, how to like get on the same page, because developers live in houses too, developers like trees too, they recognize the economic value of these things, and so is there some, where's the common ground? So beyond even what was done, that's something that I'm, just kind of interested in. trying
Well,
to
the
get there.
NPR, they had recently did on Plant Parade on Radio Lab. They described the interconnectedness of trees and how
Yeah.
one tree could be connected to at least 48 other trees around it.
Yeah. I see that.
And that's why if you cut, and the bigger the tree, the bigger the hub that it will create around it. And so at least be conscious of the caliber of the trees and try to save the bigger ones even, over the smaller ones even. And that they are connected. So the more you can retain, the better healthy. Because you see where they clear cut everything except for one tree, and then it dies because
dies.
it was
Yeah.
dependent on all
Yeah.
these other
Or it
trees.
just gets blown over because it's not.
Right, it's not
protected.
strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
how many of you folks remember, I'm gonna bring it up as Spot and Arrow and Hartwell Ave.
Mhm.
When I sat on the board initially, that was all open bean field. And you drive by there now, and it's pretty well forested. And, well, I've been on the board for 37 years. And it's all
definitely was.
grown up with pine and
Yeah.
what have you,
Yeah.
that people have let come in.
I mean, people like forests, and developers know that people like, open space and trees. It's just conflicting with the economics, and so how do you, I feel like we can come closer to where, than where we are now. But the one thing about the bylaw review, the stormwater, again, was sympathetic to Bruce Street having to do like the full stormwater package, but at the same time, considering they were creating half an acre of impervious surface, I think that's
And they were able to do it. They
appropriate.
finished it, and they.
Yeah, it was
And that's
expensive.
a lot of stormwater.
It is expensive.
And but that's also a lot of stormwater to, like, if they didn't have to do that, especially with what, Jim, you were bringing up with the neighbors getting flooded out, like if they didn't have to do that, they could have sloughed more stormwater off into that direction, and, so I'm inclined to, I don't know if there's a way to, if there's like a waiver process on a case-by-case basis, we could grant it, I'd be open to that, but I think that project absolutely demonstrates why having single-family homes, you know, encompassed is appropriate.
And it's going to ultimately be a benefit to the wetlands. I mean, that's our ultimate goal, and
Right.
I think it's actually served us well until now. I mean,
Yeah.
Amy and I talked about this before.
Yeah, this 44 Bruce really was, I think, the first time it really was clearly applied.
Yep.
Because there's only been a couple other projects where it was applied, and those were kind of redevelopment projects. So it was agreed to let them do the best they can. This was a whole new project, so they went whole hog. So,
Yeah.
but it is a burden for a single family home to basically meet what a subdivision would have to meet. Because Durkee Cooper, they didn't have to worry about it because they were already in it. Because they were, 5 to 9 houses, more than 5 to 9 houses, so. So yeah, it's either, leave it the way it is, and I always kind of forget about it. It's always like the tail end at the end. Because it occurs to me, we never mentioned it to Ted, you said about 67 mil.
Yeah, no.
But constantly get focused on the wetland
We
piece of
discussed
things.
it during the last meeting.
Okay, yeah. I just want to make
A
sure
little
he
bit
knows
with
that
the
this is sitting out there.
He sat there when they were
Yeah. Oh, okay.
presenting.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he. Do you remember, Jim? I think Ted was sitting there when they were presenting.
Yeah.
So so there was some stormwater discussion. But I mean, it also goes to the town's MS4 permit and the stormwater that the town generates and sloughs
Exactly.
off to waterways. The town is on the hook
It will help them.
for any stormwater that hits the streets and runoff.
Well, the
So-
town dumps water on 44 Bruce Street. The town dumps water on Matheson's property, which I think dissipates across
Okay.
goes down the stone wall there at some point.
Oh, yep.
So,
And that's the problematic area.
but it also, a lot of that water goes to Bennett's Brook too.
Yep.
When they put the road drainage and stuff in.
Okay.
But it's all. And town dumps water on my property out by the, for the cornfield, comes out. I did get them to cut it back some and with drainage, and it goes down along Harvard Road, but it also ends up on the 16 acres that I own down on the railroad tracks.
There is some language that, I mean, maybe we could consider, and that is, I think it was in the minutes last time where, in the regs, for a development from 3 to 9 houses, they have to do the best reasonably
Right.
Yeah.
possible, best, maybe we
Yeah.
could qualify
Well,
it. Say that they don't have to not meet them, but say they have to do their best to meet
Well,
them.
that is my question about the interpretation of this, because it says if they require an order conditions, must demonstrate compliance with the Massachusetts stormwater standards for all stormwater originating from the portions of the project, blah, blah, blah. So, must demonstrate compliance. Does that mean they just have to show if it's a single-family home, they don't need to comply, because the standards say you don't need to comply? Because with Bruce Street, it was interpreted that it doesn't matter if it's a single-family home, you go straight to the full
But-
analysis.
Having looked at Bruce Street and saw how much water was
Yeah.
all over the place now,
Yeah.
I mean, that's something else, whereas if you had just plain open field,
Right, you're
That
high
would-
and dry,
yeah,
and it would be out of our jurisdiction.
even though it did have some water and wetlands or something, is one thing, but to have water to the extent that was
Yeah.
out back there and
No, there was a lot of water.
that he had to
There's a lot
deal
of
with.
water running, all over. But I mean, that's kind of the rub. If you have wetlands, or you're in the vicinity of wetlands, or you need an order of conditions, there are places that, if you direct stormwater, it's gonna be problematic. But I think I would be open to building in some sort of leeway.
Maybe
but for that
clarifying the
case-
language too, saying that
Yeah,
the single
no, I
families
agree with that.
must maybe more specifically have them have to follow the handbook to the extent feasible, something like that for, homes up to a certain number.
And
Well-
not create issues with the town's MS4 and not create issues to neighbors. I think those are important just based on some of the
It's
recent
almost
things
like
we've
it's a
seen.
judgment call when you walk out on the property and see what's there that you gotta deal with. I mean, there's gotta be some common sense or latitude, a little bit.
Well, that would be,
I don't know
maybe
how
I'd be
you
open
work.
to a
extent
waiver.
reasonable.
Yeah,
I'd be open to a waiver to some, perhaps the applicant can, have their engineer or, if they're capable of the proper calculations, perhaps a waiver process for relief from, certain things that they don't think applies, or I'm gonna write this whole report and it's not gonna make any difference. If they can come in and discuss that, I'd be willing to entertain it, but I guess at the same time, that also puts a pretty large burden on us too, to have a really good understanding of their
That's, yeah.
stormwater at the site, which is, from
Yeah.
one site walk, is very difficult.
yeah.
well, I'm thinking about the one over there off of Nagog, the one guy that's got, 30 acres or something. I mean, there's a whole bunch of water crossing or something, I understand it, that's there. I mean, it was quite a challenge just to find a place to put a house and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but he's limiting it to one house, but it's
Yeah.
not,
Well, I mean, this does say, there's 4 categories of who would need to apply. And, the first one is all industrial, commercial, institution, office, and transportation projects. So that means any office space that comes in for a nose,
They
for,
put a
yeah,
lot
for,
of
for,
parking
with a
in.
nose of intent, no matter how small it is,
Yeah,
they're gonna need to do stormwater management,
it's probably more than
A
half an
full-
acre though.
a full stormwater management report.
You mean, so if it's like a single family house that is an office?
Yeah, like, if any of these things up in the town center were near a wetland,
Mm.
and they wanted to, I don't know, add a deck. Well, so that, and that's
So
kind of
they
where
added-
the
okay.
waiver, not
Yeah.
a deck, but, they need another parking spot or something.
Would that be a de minimis type of thing? Or?
I mean, it could, because it says all, and this is the one that gets the single-family homes, is all activities that result in a net increase of impervious within the buffer zone and area subject to protection of more than 1,000 square feet, or 5%, whichever is less.
That's the de minimis, yeah. So wait, so that applies to everything? That it applies to those?
It's an
if
and, let me
they're-
think about this.
So it is an and, all right, so it has to be that, and it has to be 1,000 square feet within the buffer zone. Yeah.
That should be an or. I'm not sure anything about this right now.
it's
saying
almost
the
like, it's almost like a
triggers
case
whichever
by
is
case.
more. Or whichever's less, I mean?
But you should have the sort of the latitude to call that judgment.
I guess was just the 2 other cases, yeah, I think it was just 2 other cases where they were doing an expansion of the house. And kind of let it squeak by as a redevelopment, and I think, if I recall, pretty much all they did was either dry well infiltration basin, Coltech type thing.
Yeah.
And Ted Doucette, 73 Hartwell,
Mhm.
is just doing the Coltech, and he didn't do like a full
Yep.
stormwater
Right.
thing.
Right.
So I think maybe it's just a question of how to apply this.
Maybe some of it's based on soils too.
Yeah, I mean, the analysis
Yeah.
needs to take that into consideration.
I'm thinking about Mill Road.
Right.
Because it's
Yeah.
basically impervious.
It's not gonna, if it's sandy soil, it's gonna purify
Infiltrate.
itself anyway. And what's next to it is nothing to brag about.
Yet.
So I guess maybe the intent of section 6 is to meet the stormwater standards.
Yeah.
Do a.
If it's above the de minimis thing.
Right, so the whole 9 yards. And then the question is, do we want a relief valve on that somehow? Either for a waiver or something.
I think if they can demonstrate there's a good reason for a waiver to a portion of it, but
Well, if we even just put it in language saying to the best, to the greatest degree possible, that will give us discretion to
yeah.
dial it back, whoever, you know.
As to how
But
much
that-
engineering they
that
have to
gives
put
you-
into it.
It puts a lot of burden on us.
That's,
Yeah.
because
Decide.
then,
A lot of technical
then you'll
burden.
probably be back to 44 Bruce Street, the first plan.
Uh,
Because that was, they said that's the best we can do.
yeah.
You gonna make me spend $10,000? So it's,
Well, that's I
Yeah.
mean that's 24,000 square feet of impervious too,
Right.
which is a lot.
it would just be an argument you're
Yeah.
gonna have.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's
I don't know, I
reasons
think
why.
this has been serving us pretty well.
Yeah.
Or, because, let me think about this, this hasn't even come up with items 1, 2, and 3, it's only come up with single-family homes.
Mhm.
So maybe adding to the best extent practical, or whatever the word is.
For a single-
For just that, for
For,
single-family homes,
Yeah.
maybe, is a possibility.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
a single family should be more stringent than the whatever the 3 to
right,
whatever the
Like
next
multiple
category is.
development.
5 to
that doesn't-
9, I think.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to have a single family more stringent than
yeah.
a subdivision of 5 to 9.
All right, let me take a crack
So
at
that's a
that.
problem. But I do think rolling it back too much puts quite the burden on us to understand not only the site conditions, the wetlands, and the surface hydrology, just from a wetland standpoint, it also puts the burden on,
Yeah, it'll have us.
how
kick it to
stormwater is gonna,
consultancy
yeah,
more
that's,
often.
well, and so then I see
Yeah.
it being like, oh, I'm not really sure, now we need a third-party review,
Yeah.
which
For a single,
you would need,
Yeah,
for an addition.
Would you,
right?
right.
would you put some sort of limitation on it as to how many square foot you're talking about, like,
The home, the
yeah,
single family
as
home?
long as it wasn't over.
Well,
30
that's the trigger
30,000.
that's the trigger that's in there. If it's
Yeah.
more than 1,000 square feet or a 5% increase, whichever is less,
Mm.
then if you're under
Yeah.
1,000 square feet or 5%, you don't need to do this.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe 5% is too low. 1,000 square feet is pretty big, but 5% isn't much.
Well, if you're 100,000 square foot
Well, I know, exactly.
commercial
But
facility,
but it's whichever's
but
less.
they're already in.
But it's whichever's less.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000 square feet is small, but again, you get something like Mill Road that's, a 10,000 square foot parcel, on the lake, or 12,000. I think it's like it's tiny.
Well, it's
But it's right
950,
on
Or
the pond.
840.
That's
right
the
now.
house, but I think the lot itself
Oh,
is super. It's like an eighth of an acre or less. It's tiny. I mean, you saw it. It's tiny, and so in that case, it's right on the pond. So you really do need to make sure your stormwater is not, And so if we add, the size exemption to it, because it's, the square footage of the house may be bigger, but the footprint, I think, is less than 1,000.
Oh, another thing we could do is say anything, or if that 1,000 feet is within the 50, then you absolutely would have to, have that discretion like that, rather than just the
Yeah,
100
and that's
foot.
where with the
Yeah,
potential
exactly.
grandfathering, there are standard considerations which could either be in here or just kind of a policy that you have, such as,
Yeah.
is it within the 50 foot? If it's no closer than the existing structure or activity already, and there's different things
Mm.
that apply.
But I mean, for the stormwater, is that what you're talking about?
But for the stormwater, yeah.
Because we don't have any differentiation between whether that 1,000 foot increase in impervious is for an existing home within the 50 or outside of the 50.
Well, except they can't work in the 50.
But if it.
They'd have to get a waiver.
For example, for the 67,
They're gonna have
Mill
to get,
Road,
right.
it's an existing home entirely within the 50. If they were gonna redo it or build it, it would have to be.
And they're changing
Following
what
the
it
stormwater.
is, so it's not, yeah.
Right, yeah, they're not even using the footprint.
But we weren't allowing them to use the footprint because it was too close. If they used the existing footprint,
No, we didn't say.
It would have been
they-
less of a process with us if they
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
using.
If they used, we didn't say they couldn't use the existing footprint.
they didn't,
They didn't want to.
Well, the
They,
issue
they
was-
wanted to expand it.
yeah, but some of it, I think, was on pilings or something. And there was some that was actual foundation.
They said there was a basement in the existing home, and there's not gonna be a basement in the rebuild.
But there's a
It's
garage.
gonna be on
There's a
slab.
garage
It's kinda-
underneath.
Yeah.
It's
Right,
on a
the garage underneath, right?
Yeah, I wasn't quite clear what the elevations were gonna look like, but.
Okay. But I think, again, kind of going back to the de minimis condition, that is something we would want to have looped into the stormwater standards because there's potentially a very real impact to an already impaired waterway,
Right.
and it's tiny, versus, a house elsewhere that is like a tiny bit in the 50, and so therefore it kicks them in. So that's a little different. But if we loosen them too much, we're not gonna hook
Right,
lots like that, which is a problem.
right.
I don't know if there's another way to hook a lot like that, like if you are, on a. I don't even know, because I guess you're in the buffer anyways. Like, how would you? Either you're in or you're not. I don't know.
Well, it seems as though you at least want to talk to the individuals
Hmm.
at some point. I mean, you should at least, then you can get some sort of a conversation going and kind of figure out. But if you get these lots that they just go ahead and do something with, and you don't know anything about it until after the fact,
Mm.
it would be, even if they agreed to do just the existing footprint, you maybe wouldn't have gotten caught.
Right. No, that's true.
Actually, this already says all residential projects creating more than one dwelling unit. So
Oh,
the 1,000 square feet aside, if you're doing one dwelling unit, you don't have to do the stormwater standards.
oh,
But if it's
good.
more, then you do. But
Really,
if you
it
also,
says-
if that one dwelling unit is 1,000 square feet, you're back into it
Which is pretty much any house.
in the buffer zone.
Right.
Yeah.
So would we want to increase the square footage of a single house for them to fall into that? Except if they're within the 50, an existing home within the 50? Does that make sense?
Well, it's a net increase,
Okay.
which
Net
of course is
increase, so
also
it should
going to
be an exist-
eventually, one of these days, beg the question is, we have a shed, but we're gonna get rid of the shed and we're gonna add the shed square footage onto the house, so there's no net increase. Or the same thing with, a deck to a patio or, yeah, so,
Occupiable.
Well, if that comes up though, I would think that would be easy for us to say yes or no, depending on
yeah.
whatever.
Configuration.
You can't
Yeah.
second guess everything in these
Right.
things, but those
Yeah.
things start coming up.
Yeah,
Well, it's like we put, the pilings for that deck for those people, was it on spec?
Oh, the
one?
replacement? Yeah. Yeah.
It had been cantilevered off the house,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they're making it just, a couple of feet
Pilings.
wider or something now, and they're putting in half a dozen or 4 posts or something,
It's eight posts.
and that is expanding out over.
Yeah, and
Right.
for that, I almost said they don't need to file anything to replace the deck until I realized that they were changing the footings.
Yeah.
But does that sound that if they're just ripping out the deck and replacing it in kind, exactly the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
would seem okay.
But as soon as I saw the footings were different,
Yeah.
So this 44 Bruce is really unique, is what I'm hearing, right? That doesn't happen often.
it hasn't. I don't know if that's sheer dumb luck or just.
But that's,
Well,
that's,
73 Hartwell.
could I take a look at that? Cause
Yeah, they did have to
so
go
it's
back.
more than one dwelling unit.
Because what are they? I think Ted, he's got a swale and I think
Oh, yeah.
a couple dry well Coltec type
Yep.
somethings. He did not do the full report that Bruce did.
Well, maybe he needs to.
Maybe we should say,
Okay, but you tell him.
To implement. Yeah.
But
I think if they're I mean, it sounds like they're changing a bunch of stuff anyway, so they're gonna be back.
They're gonna
Be back in.
have you,
That knotweed's bad down there. Holy cow!
Yeah,
Like the entire area that they have cleared, it's just solid.
just came in.
It was just solid knotweed, and now it's down. I'm assuming now to do the engineering for the
Oh,
figure.
yeah.
That's my assumption.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it's like, oh, are they supposed to?
Well, that was gonna be one of the
clear?
conditions that they gotta control what they're disturbing. It wasn't
Yeah.
the whole property.
Right. Yeah, the rest of the rest of the
You're right,
property is
you went to
fine
it.
because it's not disturbed because there's trees there, and so the knotweed isn't growing under the trees. It's just encroaching
Yeah.
in the open areas and then on the edges.
Yeah.
But it was pretty bad.
I think we got one coming in that's like a sleeping dog, and that's gonna be the Kimball thing.
But that's so big, it's gonna trigger everything anyway.
yeah.
Because their timetable, they must be pretty, what, we said September or October, they either had to do something or,
Or it's a new filing, yeah.
Oh, is it expired? Okay, so it's before my
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I think you did one last continuance. That and, whatever the,
Oh.
parcel is over on Taylor, Monarch Drive. No, not Monarch Drive. The one kind of behind Monarch Drive. I can't remember who that was. They just redid the, ANRAD for that, I think, the delineation.
Do we want?
Yeah, it's tough to give yourselves, for me, it's consistency.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it is important.
Yeah,
It really is important.
and I could, to a degree, being a little more easy on someone who wants to put on an addition to an existing house where they don't have a lot of options, versus someone who's building a whole new thing.
Right.
Unless you're tearing down 67 Mill Street and putting in, a Kinghorn property. So it's sort of a,
Right.
Yeah.
but that seems to be what happens, is that
Yeah, they
just
tear
buy
it
a
down.
small piece of property and put up this McMahon.
tiny house, yeah.
I mean, what we could do is, all residential projects creating more than one dwelling unit, all activities that result in an impervious area, whichever is less, but then after this, you say, single dwelling units, keeping the same wording.
Yeah.
Single dwelling units, with, that have this, such a net increase, that's where we could put the shall meet to the extent practicable or something like that. Shall meet those, shall no regs to the extent.
Then we have to determine what that extent practicable is.
Well, that would be only for single-family homes that we'd have to do that. That would
Which
be
you've already
restricted
kind of
A lot
done.
of those, yeah.
Right.
We're saying, especially because, it's mostly roof runoff and maybe a little bit of driveway, so, a Coltec is gonna,
Right,
Mhm.
right. So we've used our discretion in there, I think, already.
I mean, I think it had, I don't know what language to suggest, but retaining discretion based on site conditions such as, you have Mill Pond
yeah.
20 feet off your back corner, that type of thing, or, even the Beaverbrook watershed is really impacted with,
Yeah,
I would want to
and that's probably
retain-
the kind of thing that might come up during the discussions of whether or not to give them some relief.
Yeah,
Is how sensitive the resource areas are.
Right.
Near, it's
yeah,
potentially maybe your basic red maple swamp that goes on forever and has a lot of capacity.
Right,
It might be a little different than something that's got endangered species in it or something.
right.
or neighbors who are getting flooded out, or
Yeah,
you know,
there could be all sorts of
impaired
different kind of,
waterways,
yeah,
you know, spec ponds and an impaired waterway,
that's right.
as are actually several other ponds in town. Category 4 and 5. I think they need a TMDL, and once they get one, the town's on the hook to fix it. You know, and try that with, you know, non-point source areas that you don't own. So,
Right.
I mean, this is kind of the stopgap for that. I mean, I feel like that
Right.
MS4 needing, you know, being good stewards of the town and making sure we don't allow conditions that
Mhm.
jeopardize the MS4, you know, and taking the opportunity to, which I think we do all the time, to, you know, incentivize, you know, improving stormwater and improving site, like we did with DCU. Was it DCU? Is that the, or workers?
Workers Credit Union, yeah.
Yeah, so stuff like.
Is that
stuff
going
like that.
forward, by the way?
I don't know.
Haven't heard a peep out of them.
Yeah.
But you do see some.
I also haven't seen construction, have you?
It's
I
not,
haven't either.
there's stuff going on internally in the building, I think.
Oh,
No, that could be,
You see,
they could be doing some
Yeah, I've seen trucks here and there,
internal
but nothing
demo
like,
maybe, or.
I haven't seen that. No. Yeah. I drive by a decent.
they haven't started the, whatever they were talking about as far as the drive up. That,
Yeah, the separate building.
yeah,
Yeah, they stopped a tenth of the way into that building project.
Oh, yeah, the small.
They have the leaching field and a detention basin, both of which are,
the
or
branch.
have been full of water in the back, yeah.
I wonder if it would be helpful to put something, circling back to the MS4, I wonder if it would be helpful to put something in the bylaws that reference the need to, you know, abide by the town's MS4 permit and, you know, kind
Yeah.
of protect, you know, so that,
Yeah, I was
so
trying
that
to
they
write that
know
down.
that's the intent,
Yeah,
because engineers know what that means.
yeah.
You know, most consultants know exactly what that means, or engineers, and so.
But that's not something they can come back and hit us over the head with.
Yeah.
For some reason we haven't
No, that's true.
thought of.
No,
in
that's
the
a good
future,
point.
You know, it's, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Not without samples.
But I mean, isn't that inherent in following the stormwater regs? Isn't that what what would be expected to protect the MS4 permit? Anyway? I mean, do we really
Yeah.
need to say it outright?
If I was gonna get nasty about this from the other side, I would say this says you must demonstrate compliance with the Massachusetts stormwater standard. While I'm building a single-family home, I don't need to, so I'm complying. This doesn't say
Yeah.
the full burden of or the full weight of the stormwater standards in here.
But it also says if you're a single dwelling, you're
Yeah,
also,
so it's almost
you're
a
out.
double, yeah.
That's why I wanted to
need
add
to
to
fix
the
that
end
then.
where even if you're a single dwelling and you exceed the 1,000 square foot, or the 5%, you might get it, even if you're a single dwelling, you might fall into that category. Then, so for that category, we need to have a little discretion for single family homes, the ones that may fall into the stormwater reg because of that. Otherwise, they're out. They don't have to follow it.
Well, I can also ask Rebecca Lacey if she's got any bright ideas.
Yeah.
What did you mean when we told you to write this? What do you think you meant?
Yeah, ask if she has any suggestions about,
We're struggling with how
Discretion.
to apply it and how burdensome it might be on an expansion or a single-family home in particular.
well, we exclude single family homes except for the last contingency. So-
Right, yeah.
But as to your question about whether or not this means that to have them comply with it as is or as written here. It's probably as written there because we've
Well, no,
spelled out.
that just means the project needs to comply. It doesn't say to what degree it needs to comply.
Right, but we also spell out who we say it applies to.
Yes, but it
So
sa-
it
it
doesn't-
says, every transportation project has to comply with the stormwater standards. But, well, it's really the only time you get out is if you're a single-family home.
Right.
But to what degree? Because the single-family home is complying with the Massachusetts stormwater standards, because they don't have to. So,
Right,
you know.
right.
And the 5 to 9, or I can't remember what the prices, the numbers are.
Right.
Is to the best
Extent,
practical.
right.
Yeah. So, clearing up that intent might help also. And maybe it can almost be like you bump up one category. If you're a single-family home, you treat yourself if you're 3. If you're 3, you treat yourself as you're 5 to 9. If you're more than 9, you know.
Yeah, I feel like we should
Take us-
be roping the subdivisions in more
Yeah.
into
Well-
higher standards than, I like that idea, I like that.
Yeah, bumping it down a bit.
But the ones we've been dealing with, Durkee and
Mhm.
Cooper, just made it under the wire before they had to.
Right.
Yeah, but they're so big, they have to fully
Do it
comply
anyway.
anyway.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Mm.
because that was just, they
Construction
all
site.
did their houses separately.
But they have a construction SWIP for the roads and the infrastructure.
For the roads, but they don't have anything for each of the houses.
Yeah, but there was.
Theoretically, the roads include the impervious area.
Yeah, the houses
Black
are
box,
what's, all the house lots are what were causing the problem.
So the only time that
Okay.
the 6 to 9 unit or whatever would trigger that would be
Everything
if
would be sold
they do
off
them
to
all
the law.
together, and would that be like a
And it becomes
townhouse,
a
or would that be
single
like
house.
a apartment
No, if you have
building,
a
or-
6-lot subdivision,
Technically.
But you said that the subdivision
as long
at
as it only
Durkee,
builds one
or,
house, the
I'm
contract,
sorry, Cooper,
then it's a
did them all
single-family house.
separately.
Yeah. Right.
So it wasn't, even though it's a subdivision, they did them
I
all
feel like-
individual
yeah, I feel
lots?
like you shouldn't
So
be
they
able to
didn't
do
fall
that.
into the stormwater requirements?
they were all covered by the fact that their subdivision roads needed full compliance.
Okay,
And so
so,
because the houses, well, at least the front half of the houses are, depending
Yeah,
on how
the
they're
roads,
pitched,
yeah.
drains to the road, they have to take those into account.
I see.
And next time Brian Goudreau is in here, you can also nail him about that question and ask him,
Yeah.
you know, by the way,
I feel like that shouldn't be a thing.
what shouldn't be a thing?
You shouldn't be able to have a subdivision and then sell single-family lots off
Pull all the
to-
houses out.
and then not have to comply with stormwater because you've got this massive area that's disturbed
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to be concerned or comply. I think that's not, I feel like that's not the intent of
Right.
what we're trying to do.
And technically, if a contractor or somebody buys it, it's just one lot. If the lot he hasn't bought up more than 3 lots, it's one lot.
Right.
And if you're not contiguous, it's still one lot.
Yeah.
Here it is, stormwater management standards shall not apply to a single-family house. Housing, development, and redevelopment projects, detached single-family of 4 or few. So if you're 4 or fewer, they don't apply. And then condos, blah.
Wait, so
So,
single family doesn't apply and 4 or fewer?
Housing development comprised of detached single-family dwellings on 4 or fewer lots,
okay, no.
provided that there are no stormwater discharges that may potentially affect a critical area. So if you're not draining to a vernal pool, stormwater management standards don't apply.
Or a cold water stream?
Yeah. What's the next? And then there's a bunch of different ones. Multifamily, no, that's multifamily.
So wait, so we would have, so in our instance, we would say homes from 2 to 4 would have to comply. The same way from 4 to, what, 9, you said? 4 to 9?
All right, the stormwater management standards shall apply to the maximum extent practical to the following. Housing development of 5 to 9 lots.
Okay, so we
There are
could
6
go-
examples, but that's one of them.
So we could say from 2 to 4 houses would have to follow to the maximum extent practicable, and then blah, blah, blah.
5 or more
Yeah,
What
is
about
full.
Spruce
it's
Hill?
full, and then,
That's 3 houses,
Oh,
and
Yeah, so
they get clever and break it off into an LLC.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like there shouldn't be corporate remedies to,
Yeah.
we need to catch that.
That's gonna be impossible. Oh, frankly,
just make it
I
apply
know
to a
it's
single-family
probably
home.
easier for them to meet compliance than try to wiggle out of it.
Or maybe if
By the
you
time
are
you have someone
building,
who's doing 5 to 9 subdivision lots,
if you are building a single family home within an active subdivision,
yeah.
you're in. How do we do that?
You did, because every single one of those Cooper or Durkee lot NOIs that came in by themselves,
Mhm.
which since they came in before the regs,
Or
if
more
they
than-
came in now, it would be applying them all.
Okay, so they would have to, okay. 'cause I
And their
thought I just
solution
heard
might
that they
be to group
didn't.
all the stormwater into the central basin, if you will, infrastructure.
Yeah.
But they'd have to address each lot.
Mhm.
And then they have to change each lot every time they change.
Okay. We don't, I mean, I don't wanna be ridiculous either, or overly burdensome.
yeah, I mean-
But it doesn't,
Yeah,
from the intent of stormwater, which is to, stormwater regulations, which is to help prevent, too much stormwater being diverted to a certain area or erosion or, even like the construction, so they didn't have to do a construction SWIP on all that open space? I thought they did.
they did.
It's just the roads?
They,
No, at Cooper
no,
they did a
that
SWIP.
would be one project,
Right,
Oh, no,
okay,
it's
so the construction SWIP does, okay,
but that's construction.
yes,
It's not operational.
right.
I'd have to check. I forget what the standard would be for the subdivision and how they account for the houses.
Yeah.
As it seems
I do think a
unfair
lot of times the
that
houses are
like a
split.
one,
It drains if it drains out the backyard,
yeah,
it drains out the backyard.
yeah,
Right, right.
Now,
okay.
you take Durkee's, aren't those on reduced size lots because they're cluster zoned? So
I have no idea. I forget.
even though, I mean, they got all the open space out behind them, they're still smaller sized lot, they're not full-size lots, are they?
I'm not sure. I can't.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, they clustered and they just have to prove that they could have had all, I forget.
Yeah. I
No,
know,
but I
it's
mean,
too-
it's
They had to do a proof plan that shows that if they didn't do an open space development, they could get septic for them and then they can cluster them or vice versa. I
Oh, sure.
forget which way it goes.
I mean, going back to the developments and doing the onesie twosie thing, I don't think it's fair that someone, like a single family home, is gonna get roped into something, like a 73 Hartwell is gonna get roped into this, but all the, the Durkee, Cooper, well, I guess Durkee is different, but the different Cooper house lots aren't gonna, I mean, cause it's on a hill, it drains right, a lot of it drains right,
Yeah.
like towards the wetland.
They're putting a lot of infrastructure already anyway,
Yeah,
also.
no, I
So
understood.
it's, so it's
But
in a
from an
sense easier
intent-
for them to,
Yeah, yeah, I suppose it's easier for them to meet, but what if they weren't? And they're not getting kicked in?
So maybe,
How do we
why don't we bring
remedy
this,
that?
say what our desire
Intent,
is
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
to
right.
Lacey or whatever,
Rebecca Lacey.
Rebecca
yep.
Lacey,
Mm.
and see if she can put into words, what we're getting.
Magically, yes.
Yeah. She can do it.
And it's the same issue with the wetland setback and pre-existing structures, the kind of, what I've been calling the grandfathering thing.
Within the 50,
What's wrong with it?
you mean? Within the 50?
If you want,
Oh, the de minimis?
yeah, that's the only thing we're down to, besides the stormwater, which,
I don't wanna, I don't really want a de minimis at all. Cause I feel like we've had situations where, like a deck or something would have been de minimis and they don't have
so
to
just
come
leave
in,
it where it
but
is.
Yeah. I wish I could,
I had the sense Carl was headed that direction too.
yeah, we've had a few, oh gosh, I wish I could remember which ones now, but we've had a few and I've thought, okay, this is actually, we've caught some things that.
Yeah, there was
been-
the in-law expansion that started on one side of the house and
Yeah.
went to the other side of the house and then came back.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the bigger ones, or the main ones. And 67 Mills is gonna be a poster child.
Yep.
67 mil is hard because
It is hard.
now they're moving it totally away from the old footprint, and it is a totally new house. It's like they're demolishing it.
I think that's an issue with zoning type stuff. I see it as like, you know, it used to be a house there, and yeah, they're ripping down, starting over again, but.
So the grandfather would be just the square footage that they started out with, 840 square feet. That's technically the grandfather footage.
So in a sense, they almost get that 840 square feet.
Yeah,
And if
with
they
the
want to
new
put it
house.
someplace else further away.
Right, right.
But if they add more than 84 square feet to it, they're gonna need a waiver. And to get the waiver, they need to meet the public interest.
Why only 84 square feet?
That's the 10%.
10%.
Oh, no, wait, never mind.
We have 5%?
We
That
don't
would have
have-
the grandfathering is gone, never mind,
Yeah, we don't have.
Yeah. never mind.
So if they have over 840 square feet, they have to have a waiver.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Does it make a difference whether it's existing foundation or a porch it's on pilings?
Well, you tell me. But those are some of the questions.
Yeah, but it, I mean,
And
it
it's also-
depends.
It does depend.
And that's the
You could
problem.
also use that for, what workers' credit union is, does it make a difference just going from building to parking lot or parking lot to building?
no, not really.
But I can think of situations where, you know, you're on a steep slope and you want to, like, you know, replace the deck from cantilever to
Right.
posts, and you know, you have like the erosion potential, and you know, grading and all sorts of stuff, and I would want to hear about that. You know, perhaps we make a negative determination, but I'm just trying to think of the situations where, you know, we would catch what we need to catch. And we've had a few now that I've thought, ooh, if we create this de minimis of 1,000 feet or 5%, we wouldn't have caught. And again, I'm a little foggy tonight. I wish I could think of, but there have been at least 2 instances where and I think Carl and I have both.
Yeah,
said,
the
"Ooh, we
only
wouldn't have caught that."
waivers,
Yeah. Yeah.
waivers have been issued for septic replacement.
Yeah.
Those have
Yep.
always been easy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if I'm remembering this correctly, I think the only real waiver you've issued is for workers' credit union, like the real, you know,
Yeah,
public interest.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and the debris removal.
Yeah,
yeah.
That was
that's
the other
one of them, yeah.
There's just a bunch of junk out. And then-
Parley would be potentially another one.
Yep. And they'd be significantly improving site conditions
Yeah.
based
Right,
on what
yeah.
we've seen already.
Mills,
Which is
a
what
tough,
we
Mill
told Ted
Road is a
last
tough
time.
one.
This is a really
It is
tough
tough.
one.
It is
67
a
Mill
tiny
Road.
house, but it's a tiny lot.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
tiny.
tiny lot.
So people just come in without any idea of what the expectation is? Isn't that kind of what it seems?
Yeah.
They just seem so floored that it's like, well, the laws are here to protect these resources and these wetlands.
People don't know.
Well, I'm not
So-
surprised that the owner came into that. I'm very surprised that Ted Doucette came
Yes,
in like that.
yes. Because he's been in
Yeah, he
here for
knows.
several
Yeah,
projects.
he's
Yeah.
aware. He knows.
Yeah.
But I do think. Oops, sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
But he gets paid at the end, maybe. I mean, somebody's got an idea,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and if you don't bring it in for a proposal and
Right.
see whether it flies or not. And also with the new regulations, some of it's an unknown situation, like 44 Bruce Street. That was an unknown
Yeah.
as to what they were gonna get into
Right.
with the new.
They knew it was wet, though.
Yes, but they didn't know to the extent
Correct. Yep.
that you
And
were
that's a
gonna
risk.
require them to do.
Yep.
Now, once the word gets out, these engineers will start to think a little more about
I think that's great.
what gets proposed,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because these bylaws are relatively new, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
which makes it very expensive for the first 2 or 3 people that come in if they
Right.
wanna pursue it, until the engineers find out what the town or conservation is looking for.
I really need the.
Well,
the
okay,
thing-
10 Fort Pond should have a stormwater thing because it's more than 5% increase in impervious.
Shit.
And you see, it never came up because
Well, we didn't
a
get
lot
that
of
far.
times the stormwater is like
That's the last.
I remember after that never addressed it because there's so much more
Yeah.
focus on the
It's great that
wetlands.
you
I
got
think.
the regulations, so. I mean, you
Well,
have a
and I-
finite resource here, eventually the whole town's gonna be developed, you know, so. If you keep chipping
You
away at
haven't
it.
seen
Yeah.
anything, and do you see the Kimball, what was that Kimball project we were talking about?
What's,
That's the subdivision that's proposed for behind the Toyota dealership.
is that
Yeah.
the thing that used to exist? That old abandoned thing?
There's a couple houses that were built back there but never
There's
occupied.
several.
But
houses
there
back there.
is
Right.
decks and stuff that were actually over the pond, and we got overruled from DEP.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
interesting.
overruled
That
us.
was with the old,
Yeah, that
just
was
the
because it
bylaw,
was
no
a 40,
regs.
that was because it was a 40B
Oh,
type
yeah.
thing.
Right.
But I mean, there's stuff there that's unbelievable. And we tried to curtail it a little bit, and DEP overruled us.
How long ago was that?
What's it been, about 10 years now?
Yeah.
but we have regs now, which are,
Yeah.
they have more teeth.
But,
Right, but DEP could still override you on their end of
And-
things.
But
Then you end up with two projects, which is always.
But I
And-
thought that the reason why they overruled us was because we didn't have regs in place.
because
that
of the
would
40B.
outlaw it. But still, we didn't have any notice.
DEP's got nothing to do with bylaws.
No, but what I'm saying is that I thought, for example, we had instances where people were building within 25 feet of the wetland, and we
8 feet.
denied, or 8 feet, we denied it, and they said, no, you don't have any regs to
And
stop
bylaws
you.
to back it up.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Interesting.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
How it goes.
Now we'll see whether, now that we have some regulations, we'll see whether they, but with the powers to be promoting houses like they are, and it depends how it filters down on the other side. Well, I mean, that's what they've been saying, you're gonna need more houses.
Well, yeah.
Well, it comes back to
More
reasonable and
low-income
responsible and tree retention and stormwater regulations and all these great things.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks for fighting the good fight.
Struggle.
Are we,
Does anyone say thank you to you guys? So I'll say that. Thanks for doing what you do. You probably don't hear that at the end of the day.
No.
I'll be the cheerleader over here. Go team.
But the boards,
You don't hear it after
the
you've been
boards
slapped around a bit, but
change
thanks for
within
what you've done.
time. I mean, the planning board for a long time was very hard to get much of anything through, and the whole board changed, all except for one member.
Yeah.
And then Board of Health, we had one odd person that wouldn't allow things, and he seemed, he could go home have a dream some night and come up with a new regulation and see. And that's what was happening, but that stopped a lot of building. But on today's standards, you'd never seen Jennifer Street built. It's all went up through there,
where's Jennifer Street?
by the post office,
Oh, yeah.
all up through, I mean, if it had been, the stuff had been in place 50 years ago,
It was what through there? It's
oh
interesting.
yeah.
I guess you could see like drainage off the hill there. Huh.
But I mean, there's a lot of
I
things,
drive by
places,
Jennifer like every day.
there's a lot of places that would never have been built.
Yeah, in Boston.
Yeah.
That's getting to be stupid and stupidity. I mean, putting it
Is there
down.
anything we can do with trees with our bylaws? Like to better protect trees or to incentivize leaving stands within the buffer? I mean, I know they need to talk to us about, but I think what we run into a lot is, you're gonna build a house 2 feet from
Right, yep.
the edge of the buffer, and like you've got trees right there, and so they're gonna have to you can't
Yeah,
create a
you know.
situation. And I know we've a few times now called people out and they've had to, kind of
Back off.
go back off a redesign or whatever. I mean, it seems like that might be worth something that people know about ahead of time.
I think I had some
I don't know
language
how
somewhere.
how that would, or just, or,
It should probably be maybe
Incentivizing.
like the normal part of the discussion of buffer zone
Yeah.
impacts.
So you guys are updating right now? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I can find some positive tree wording, I could just get it to you?
Sure.
Yep,
Yeah?
we can talk about it.
I mean, could we have
I mean,
like
it's
a
open for discussion. It's really what we're.
a cut one down, plant one tree, like replace what you have to cut down kind of thing.
I mean, I think we discuss it.
I've
and
seen
it
that for
happens, but-
policies, for tree cutting policies,
Yeah.
that basically the administrator can approve removal of one tree with these conditions.
Mhm.
Which has been sitting like way here in the back of my to-do pile for about a year or two now.
Maybe just minimize cutting, because I would say, in response to, cut one, plant one,
They're not equal.
definitely the priority should be to maintain the existing tree, because
Sure.
because of its establishment of the mycorrhizae and everything.
Yeah, but
Connection.
I look around and I see my property, and trees that were 30 feet tall are now 100 feet tall. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not harvested the way they used to be to kind of keep things in balance. And that's why I think you're seeing so many of these trees going down with all this wind. They're either rotten inside or they're so tall with just,
Although before
That's
we
why we
got
had the
here,
white
there were
pines taken down next to our houses.
humongous
They're
trees.
just monsters.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it's pretty shallow roots in there.
I mean, like, there was one individual that came in, the insurance company was telling them she needed to
Yeah.
take them down.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Sarah, I think.
Yeah, so I mean.
The tree, I mean, the pictures, the tree was like right on her house. And so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, it's
one
probably
thing, but
growing.
having, so I guess maybe it's, if like for a new, like if it's someone whose house has been established forever, that's one thing. Like I feel like the cases that have come in have been reasonable and,
Yeah.
I don't think I've had an issue with really any of them, but,
Oh, we still
but
have
if
two.
you're designing a house,
Or an
don't
addition.
create, a safety hazard by building right up against, like if there are trees that are just gonna need to be taken like a year or two later, that's not.
Well, that's how much the roots get disturbed
Well,
when they start doing the
right.
construction too.
No, that's true, so, it's, yeah,
I don't know if any of you folks have been by my house, there's a tree,
yeah,
maple tree right in the front yard.
okay.
I can remember as a kid, I could put my hand around that
Yeah.
trunk of that tree.
Sure.
And I don't even think I'd get my arms around it.
Yeah.
Right, just so as long as we
Can't
keep
think of
promoting revegetation, I think, because the problem is with the way everything's trending now, like even in the greater Worcester area over the last, I think, 10 years or so, they've lost 7% of their canopy,
But
So
isn't that because of the Asian longhorn beetle?
So it's
removal?
funny you say that. Clark University did analysis of that entire area.
Yeah.
And they found, the ice storm, the Asian longhorn beetle, and they did all the analysis, and by like a huge margin, like 80% or whatever it was maybe like 20% beetle, 10% ice storm, whatever it was all development.
Interesting. Wow.
'Cause it's cutting down without replanting, so like just to have something in there, even if it is the one-to-one, something, just so that there is some thought to revegetation, because once you cut it
retain.
down, you plant the thing, but
And it's on fill, it's not on like native soils, it's on like a bunch
Yeah.
of fill and,
that's the problem we're having with the
Whatnot.
parkways in Boston. It's all these Olmsted design grand old oaks, but when they were planted, there was a ton of soil, and now there's this much room left, and we replant oaks, but they're never going to grow that big again.
Yeah.
The conditions are all wrong. So it's just it's a slippery slope down, and it's going to continue that way.
Yeah.
So something to be mindful of.
I forgot about this determination. That's still on there.
I'm going to sleep.
For a tree removal. Wake up. This,
oh, from Mattawanaki.
yeah, this was actually very interesting. It's a really nice, I think it was a white oak, leaning out over Mattawanaki, but the trunk split. Perfectly healthy tree otherwise, but it's starting to pull the bank up and it split. You can actually see through it, but not in that picture.
Yeah, it's internal. Rot.
That thing's gonna go. So
And it's gonna take the
Wow.
bank with it. is-
then it's gonna take the bank with it. So they would like to take it down
Yeah.
And leave the stump.
and leave the stump.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah,
went through the
I
whole
was
thing
okay
with
with
them. I
that.
said, tell you what, if you want to go back in and grind the stump later and the bank is undercut a little bit and fix it all, you got a whole different filing on your hands. But if you want to take the tree down because he's worried it's going to fall and someone will be kayaking under it when he falls.
Yeah.
What would cause that to split? The wind?
No, that's rot. So you'll get internal rot, even in these oaks. You'll have healthy sound wood in the cambium and the outer layers, but you'll get some internal stem cavities. And that's just kind of.
I've been seeing trees on Harvard Road across from me, oaks and stuff, that a lot of them appear dead. They're right near the,
Are they like defoliated?
some of them
The
seem like they
gypsy
had come back. Some, they weren't, well, they're probably 100-foot tree, but then 12 inches. But there's some that are just plain dead along the road, right over the power line.
Yeah.
So, are we supposed to act on this?
If you would like to issue a negative determination 3 on that, that would probably be what they would like to see.
Was that on the schedule?
Yes, it was the first 7:45.
Yeah.
That's when I said we didn't push it because they
Oh.
weren't
Yeah, I
able to
read
make it
through.
tonight.
I read through this, I'm comfortable with making a negative determination.
Okay, you wanna make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to make a -3 determination for the tree removal, but leaving the stump at, where's the, oh, here we go, at 49 Mattawamkeag Trail, U 47-45-0.
I'll
Is
second
there a
it.
second? Or a second, all those in favor? Aye.
Okay. Well, and that's actually another one because they're thinking about doing something to the house.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, I said, well, you know,
That's something.
come back. Why don't you come back when you know what you want to do?
But you know, it's expensive just to do the determination. By the time you advertise,
Yeah. No, it's true.
roughly how much are we talking now? It's what, $85? for
It's $50 for the application fee, about $170 for the public notice. You got the abutter notification that he did it all by hand. He went around and got them all to sign it. He didn't do the green cards. And that's it. If it was notice of intent, you'd have to add on the recording fees. So it's $250.
Yeah, it's not a cheap
No, it's not.
situation.
Plus the cost of removing the tree.
But we need to protect trees that are in our resource areas, so there's that.
But when you drive by a resource area and see half the trees laying over, because the wind's blowing them over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh,
Creates habitat though.
Yeah.
And
Blocking-
more soil.
And blocking up a brook. It's,
So the reason that Durkee didn't come in was because of the alleged stream
Oh, the
Yes.
overhead.
out there,
The intermittent stream.
the alleged intermittent stream.
Alleged. Okay.
So
It had flags on it,
I didn't see any flags.
old
I
flags.
saw
Yeah,
them
they're
down the
flags.
bottom. But so I just said to Dave Cow, I said, okay, you write me a memo why this isn't a stream. Or, Brian, you find out why the ANRAD, because an ORAD was issued for the delineation, why that can't be changed with new information. So Brian is trying to look into that.
Because there was banks, we saw
Yeah, there-
scouring banks, evidence of,
And there's a wetland up above it, it's coming out of something.
yeah.
So we started having arguments, I don't want to argue about it, you write me a memo.
And then and then
I can say no!
the downstream area looked like it was kind of that flat
Received.
area, but that was exactly the area they had used to test pit.
You could see it coming out of the test pit area, you could find it through the ferns, it does drop out.
We didn't
before-
look that hard. When
It
we were
drops out
trying to-
before you get
But
down
we
to
saw like a whole
Regular BBW.
There was like channeling all over the place
Yeah.
in there.
Mm.
But that one was really,
Yeah, some decent flow that comes out of there.
yeah, and it was flagged. I mean, there were flags down.
Yeah,
I
there
have,
were
I have
flags.
pictures.
That's funny, because I don't,
There were flags up, there was 2 that I noticed, right?
2 or 3.
There was like up there, then close to the bottom of it where.
And then we found the very bottom, there was the number that I
Right,
sent you,
yeah.
the flag with the number, but there were at least 2 up above
Up
it.
above it, yeah.
hydrology was there and lack of vegetation and stained leaves.
Yeah,
I didn't take any soil bits, but in my opinion, at least 2 of the 3 were there.
They will be making the argument that you can't reopen this issue.
Right.
So I said, okay.
that's the first time at least the first time I saw the site.
There was a sidewalk and there was a red issue for the property.
Sorry, what's
During the
an
drought
O-
year, I think, right?
Well, no, as I talked to Judy Schmidt, we probably shouldn't be talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Oh, so, motion to adjourn?
Yes, you want to make a motion?
So
I'll
moved.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moves.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You're gonna kill this one?